Pacific in the UNESCO SDG Steering Committee and the co-chair of the UNESCO International Task Force in Distance Learning and ICT. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Ethel Agnes Pascua Valenzuela.
Thank you very much, President Bert Tuga, Your Excellency, Professor Emeritus Dr. Leonor Magtolis Briones, USEC San Antonio, Director Ana, esteemed members of the Literacy Coordinating Council, distinguished experts, speakers, guests, dear LCC Secretariat, participants, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. Magandang umaga po sa ating lahat. It is an honor for me to join you on this special occasion, although virtually. We could have been in Baguio again or in any big venues to celebrate this important Literacy Week as usual and witness another momentous occasion. But COVID is here. So happy virtual International Literacy Week. May I share my PowerPoint? Literacy plays a key role in improving people's lives. We know that. It empowers youth, it empowers adults, and allows them to become active citizens, to make informed decisions. And we know that adults with enhanced literacy skills have better chance of earning higher incomes and finding gainful employment. However, in the recent study of UNESCO Institute of Statistics, we see a big challenge because we still have over 770 million adults and youth who lack basic literacy. And sad that 2/3 of them are women. They still lack basic reading and writing skills. And only 64 countries participate in literacy survey. So it's not a very good indication. Not all countries are doing literacy survey. And indeed, I think on the 19% of countries with direct measures of adult literacy. We are very lucky indeed in the Philippines because we have a regular way of measuring our basic and functional literacy through FLEMS, which I think will be presented in another session. But if we come to think of it, before the pandemic, in the last data, in East and Southeast Asia, 84% of the elderly were literate, along with 42% in South Asia and 53% in West Asia. And at the same time, only 10% of the youth population were literate in West Asia and 9% of them in South Asia. So it's really very challenging that still 102 million youth and 750 million adults lack basic reading and writing skills. Let's go to our country, the Philippines. Next slide. We see FLEMS as a very good tool to determine our literacy. I still remember how we reviewed the FLEMS question and being a member of the LCC before my stint here in Thailand. And we already had 6 FLEMS reports since 1989, 94, 2003, 2008, 2013, and 2019. And in some of them, I participated in the launch at Simeo Inotech. So we see that the FLEMS 2019 highlighted basic and functional literacy rates for our country. 94 out of 100 Filipinos who are 5 years old and above are literate in 2019. That's before the pandemic. In addition, 73 million Filipinos who are 10 years old and above are considered functionally literate. And this is already an increase from the past data that we got from 91.6% to 90.3% in 2013. It's indeed a milestone already. However, we can also see that National Capital Region remains the top region with the highest basic and functional literacy rates, while BARM comes down as lowest in both criteria. So it's really challenging for us how to have an increase in basic and functional literacy rates in BARM. And I think I recall that we did a project there to increase basic literacy sometime. I hope that it helped, but still we see a lot of intervention needed. And if we compare our country with the rest of the world, in the ranking that I saw, we are 47th in literacy across the globe. But still, we have a lot of challenges, especially during this pandemic. We still have to address and to reach SDG 2030 goals. And that is really lifelong learning for all. And mind you, almost over 30 countries have already reached 99 to 100% literacy rates as reported. Now let's go to the next slide. I'm thinking that, yes, I have in our analysis, which will be presented later. So if you are in elementary level or elementary graduate, you are presumed to have higher literacy rates, almost 100% if you complete studies. That is what we have found out in our country, which is really very good. But in the different tests that we got lately, we also see that a number of our children at primary level could not read and also write meaningfully. So we also have to review this in the next few days or years. Next, let me say the SDGs. We only have 3,039 days to 2030. So at this moment, what we can see is that we are quite busy doing all the plans. So at the board of UNESCO Institute of Lifelong Learning, we did several workshops. The medium-term strategy will be ending this year, and we're supposed to have a new strategy to lay better or enhanced foundations for equitable lifelong learning for all, and we're not done. 8 years, 3 months, and 26 days from today. So next slide, UN member countries are mobilizing all levels during this decade. And in the UNESCO Medium-Term Strategy 2022 to 2029, it really aims to achieve SDGs in its field of competence. So the medium-term strategy will contribute to the realization of international framework for action, including the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, among others. But the majority of countries in the last Education for All goal, they were missed, right? And that is reducing adult illiteracy rates by 50% in 2000 and 2015. And we need to work harder, maintain the momentum of increasing literacy rates. As in the Philippines, we have increasing literacy rates. I hope it will not go down due to the pandemic. So I'm saying that there is still a lot of things to do for LCC, for different agencies. Let's go to the next slide, please. So in the document of UNESCO, they have prioritized already for 2022 to 2029 as proposed, focusing on key SDG priorities for UNESCO. That is, of course, quality education, where we are actually having a lot of meetings. This Friday, we'll have meetings. Hopefully, Philippines will be there. Gender equality, clean water, sanitation, sustainable cities, climate change, life above water, life on land, peace, justice, partnership for the goals. So next, let me say that, so, focusing. But in this time of pandemic, we see a lot of inequities and inequalities. So we see also the adverse impact in all segments of population, even in the education sector. So in different regions of the world, we see not all have very good access to all the facilities, especially electricity and computers. And then we go to remote learning, right? Big schools and small schools, they have difference in connectivity and in accessing online resources. There are a lot of disadvantaged schools. lots of inequities. And the pandemic evidences the gap necessary to have better connectivity, but we have to reach the most underserved areas. So next slide. We have seen a lot of news about inequities, right? Remote, rural schools, small schools, even our community learning centers. Sometimes they are inaccessible. They're mostly located in underserved areas. And even our border schools are disadvantaged. Some teachers would have to really find a place where they can have better bandwidth and connectivity. Headlines like school children climbing trees to get signal for online classes, or students trekking hills and mountains to attend online classes. We can see this not just in our country, but in many parts of the world. So my next slide is about the news. You know, Dr. Briones would always ask me, what's the happening in Southeast Asia? So you see, during the pandemic, there was a lot of innovation coming from different countries. So basically for Brunei, they have also developed the platform Microsoft, OneDrive educational program channels. For Cambodia, they also have digital learning resources. Same with Indonesia, with teacher shares, online platforms, and then the Google Classroom, Lao Learn, the Lima for Malaysia. Next slide. If we go to Myanmar, they have digital education platform useful for teachers, whether their basic education, higher education. Social media for the Philippines, our DepEd Commons, provision of educational program on TV and radio. Singapore Student Learning Space, portal for learning in Singapore. The Thailand online, offline, on-air programs, TV and radio channels. Timor has Learning Passport, a global online learning platform developed by UNICEF and Microsoft. And Vietnam also developed its own online platform like Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and other LMS. So basically, all member countries of CMEO have tried its best to use popular digital tools just to reach out to the learners and teachers. They have their own digital platforms, and they did this. During the pandemic, they were all in a hurry to develop this one. So next slide. When it comes to remote education, we see that teachers became the spotlight of such news. Emerging concerns on their ICT competencies to deliver literacy virtually with efficiency. So teachers have been forced to implement distance learning modalities, right? And we heard from Australia that they did remote education framework that I think is very useful for all of us, that we need student engagement, community partnership, parental involvement, support for teachers, inclusion and equity for all. This is a very good model developed by Aspire of Australia. So now let's go to the next concern on literacy and lifelong learning. In our region, it's not yet perfect. We are still climbing to SDG 2030. There are reports, we have two centers focusing on literacy. CMEO Center for Lifelong Learning in Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam, and CMEO Center for Community Education and Development in Laos. So they have reported relapses into illiteracy, and there are still lifelong learning centers which are still underdeveloped. And some of the community learning centers are still run inefficiently. Lack of policies for illiteracy eradication, and I think, COVID has impacted more.
Doc Ethel, I think you're muted. Please unmute your microphone.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. Did you hear me finish the main challenges? Yes.
Relapses. Yeah.
Okay. So these are the main challenges in lifelong learning in Southeast Asia. As I have mentioned, there are two two centers of Simeo who are working on literacy and lifelong learning. Our center in Vietnam, Simeo CEL, Center for Lifelong Learning, and Simeo CED in Laos, Lao PDR, who is actually on community education and development. So in some of the reports coming from our two centers, they reported main challenges like relapses into illiteracy, especially those in far-flung areas, and lifelong learning centers are still underdeveloped in some rural areas, and some community learning centers are run inefficiently and they lack materials. And the teachers also, in terms of ICT competencies, are weak, and there is a lack of policies for illiteracy eradication. So this is some of the findings in so many forums that we have done for literacy and lifelong learning. Next slide, please. So in our discussions last Simeo Congress 2021, we see the role of course, of UNESCO in education, in science, and culture. And this pandemic has broadened inequality in access. And there's a big skills gap from digitalization and innovation. What we got from our experts are improving research and innovation, investing in training, strengthening the bridge between demand for and supply of skills. So if we talk of skills requirement for this century, it has also changed dramatically. But overall, in a sense, we need to have inclusion as our main or the main platform for SDG 2030. So in the next slide, I would like to share three considerations or three recommendations that are very, very useful. Of course, we need to strengthen our virtual and online distance learning courses, and that can be achieved through capacity building, right? And universities integrating ICT in all areas. We need to increase community learning centers, making sure that programs are well in place. And we need to really work on research, contribution, dissemination, and outreach. And most importantly, I think with all the good data that we have, we know for sure that we cannot do things on our own. We need collaborative, we need strategic partnership, because children, youth, and adults should benefit from quality lifelong learning opportunities through SDG, which is our theme today. So in the next slide, I would like to share with you that we also have been working so hard during the pandemic. So our 26 centers all spread all throughout Southeast Asia, our member countries associate, member countries affiliate, we have worked together to ensure that digitalization of literacy, inclusive and meaningful, will not leave anyone behind. We have launched Simeo Cares, we have done a lot of webinars, and we were able to reach over 1 million teachers, students, learners, youth, all throughout the journey. And our Simeo centers have different online learning platforms where these are offered for free, especially during this time of pandemic. We're coming up with more toolkits for remote teaching and learning, and ministers of education have endorsed Simeo Cares as our flagship to reach out to the most vulnerable members or the most disadvantaged members of the Simeo family. So, well, I think those are my sharing. A lot of things to do, but I know that if we work together as in the three recommendations, we will make everything happen. So with the time we left, I think we can all, do something, even small things, they will all count. So inclusive, meaningful, lifelong learning for all. Maraming salamat po. Have a good day.
Thank you, Dr. Ethel Agnes P. Valenzuela, for inspiring us with your motivational message and encouraging us to work together towards achieving the universalization of literacy amidst the pandemic. With this, we will proceed to the awarding of Certificate of Recognition. The Certificate of Recognition reads, Republic of the Philippines Department of Education and Literacy Coordinating Council, DepEd Complex, Meralco Avenue, Pasig City. This certificate is awarded to Dr. Ethel Agnes P. Valenzuela for her meritorious role as keynote speaker in the 2021 National Literacy Conference with the theme Literacy Learning Innovations in the New Normal Towards Sustainable Development, held via MS Teams on September 6 to 7, 2021. Given the 6th day of September 2021. This certificate of recognition is also awarded to Dr. Bert J. Tuga for his meritorious role as resource person in the 2021 National Literacy Conference. Signed by Diosdado M. San Antonio, Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction, Chairperson of Literacy Coordinating Council. Congratulations and thank you, Dr. Valenzuela and Dr. Tuga, for your time.
Thank you very much.
Before we proceed to the first plenary session, let us first watch a video presentation prepared by the Municipality of Cuyo, Province of Palawan. Just to give us a background, the cultural presentation that we will be witnessing virtually will show different Cuyonon songs being interpreted through dance by the youth of Cuyo. These are based on the customs and traditions of salt making, fishing, and farming. It aims to involve the young generations in the preservation of the locality's arts and culture. Ladies and gentlemen, the Municipality of Cuyo, Province of Palawan.
The Literacy Coordinating Council is the policy-making body of the country when it comes to literacy. As such, the Council came up with a framework of
I think we're
community-based
having
literacy
some technical
program
difficulty.
and engagement.
So while waiting
With
for the technical
advancement
issues
of
to be
the nation
resolved,
as its
you may
ultimate
stand up for a while
local government
and do
leaders
some
civil
stretching
society
or hydrate
organizations
yourself by
are
drinking a
encouraged
glass
to
of water.
institutionalize the framework.
Thank you for patiently waiting.
What are the elements a community-based literacy program must possess in order to be engaging and exemplary?
May we hear some audio, please? Thank you.
When citizens become literate through the application of these standards, in every LGU community-based literacy program, an empowered and advanced nation is indeed achievable.
Thank you, Kuya Youth, for allowing us to identify ourselves as Filipinos and deepening our sense of national pride with that fascinating and entertaining cultural presentation. At this moment, we will start with plenary session 1 with the topic 2019 FLEMS results and literacy research in the new normal. To introduce our guest speakers for this topic, let us welcome the Supervising Economic Development Specialist of the National Economic Development Authority, or NEDA, Ms. Susan M. Carandang. Good morning, Ma'am Susan.
Okay. Thank you, Mel. Our first speaker for plenary session 1 is currently the head of the Social Sector Statistics Service of the Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA. Prior to her assumption to her current post as Assistant National Statistician, she served as Chief of the Civil Registration and Administrative Support Division of the PSA. As Assistant National Statistician, she oversees the administrative and technical management of the various household and establishment surveys on demographic, income, labor force and decent work, health and poverty statistics, including the monitoring of the Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs. She shares the same vision of the national statistician, si Dr. Dennis Mapa, for the PSA to be a solid, responsive, and world-class authority on statistics and civil registration services in support of the administration's goal for inclusive growth. Our speaker took her bachelor's degree in applied economics and graduated cum laude at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. And she obtained her Master's of Science in Economics at the University of the Philippines, and also her Master's in Statistics as a USAID scholar, also at the University of the Philippines School of Statistics. She is a recipient of the Provincial Government of La Union's Plaque of Recognition for her assistance to the attainment of rice self-sufficiency in the province of La Union in 2013. She also received an award from DARFU1, the Certificate of Recognition as Resource Speaker to the Technical Briefing on Damage Assessment and Reporting System, also in 2013. And now to present the results of the 2019 Functional Literacy Education and Mass Media Survey, or FLEMS. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome ANS Wilma A. Gillian.
Good morning, everyone, and to all the dignitaries and other guests to this forum. A pleasant good morning. I will be sharing my screen, please. Okay, can you now see my screen? Okay.
No screen yet, ma'am.
Yeah, it's up already on my laptop. Can you already see my screen?
Not yet po.
Why kaya? It's already being shared. I'm scrolling my screen. Can you already see it?
Nothing on the screen, ma'am.
Okay.
Do you want us to share your screen instead?
Yes, please. Maybe.
Okay. May we request the secretariat to please get the file from Ma'am Wilma? Right. So while we're fixing the technical issue here, let me just remind everyone that the certificates of participation will be given to those who will fill out the online evaluation form through the link to be provided by the LCC Secretariat at the day 2 of the conference. In order to receive a certificate of participation, you are required to accomplish the online evaluation form at bit.ly /NLC eval form until 11:59 p.m. of September 7, 2021. Okay, please take note the distribution of certificates is targeted to be accomplished within 2 to 3 weeks from the date of each conduct. Also, we would like to acknowledge the special participation of our dear friends from the Philippine National Association of Sign Language Interpreters for this conference. We would also like to acknowledge the presence of our esteemed guest speakers, council members, and TWG members, and our colleagues from different government agencies. Okay, are we ready now with the presentation of Ma'am Wilma? Can the LCC Secretariat share the screen, please?
Yeah, maybe I can stop sharing already because I'm actually on share, but it's not appearing on your screens. So I would rather stop sharing. I hope the Secretariat can put up my presentation.
Yes, please.
Good morning.
Right.
We asked her secretary already, and we're Miss Wilma. Can we request you to send the PowerPoint presentation to us?
Yeah, I just sent it to the Secretariat
Okay, let me
a
look
few
at.
minutes, yeah, a few seconds ago.
Thank you.
Okay, so while we are fixing Ma'am Wilma's presentation, happy Literacy Week to all of us. September 2 to 8 is declared as the National Literacy Week as stipulated in Presidential Proclamation number 239, series of 1993. Kindly check the Council's programs and projects on literacy via LCC website at www.lcc.deped.gov.ph and follow our Facebook page at Literacy Coordinating Council to be updated of our current literacy initiatives. Join this year's call for entries for public service announcement, PSA videos on literacy. Visit our website at lcc.deped.gov.ph to know more about the details. You may also email the LCC Secretariat at lcc@deped.gov.ph to learn more. Okay, the Literacy Coordinating Council is proud to present the NLIS, or the National Literacy Information System. The NLIS is LCC's main database, which aims to provide a comprehensive and up-to-date digital resources and contain a repertoire of LCCS literacy programs and projects, among others. It is also one of the LCC's target milestone in advocating the universalization of literacy in the Philippines. So check out the webpage of lcc.deped.gov.ph to know more about the NLIS. Okay, so are we ready now? So
we are yet to receive the PowerPoint presentation. We haven't received it yet po, Miss Wilma.
I sent it to gem.bualat@deped.gov.ph, and my computer says that I have already sent it. I'm really sorry, no. I'm sharing this presentation, but it's not seen in your screens. Really sorry for that.
it's okay, ma'am. So tell us something about well we're fixing the technical issue, no? So tell us something about the 2019 FLEMS role. What is FLEMS, by the way?
Yeah, FLEMS actually means Functional Literacy, Education, and Mass Media Survey. And this is regularly conducted by the Philippine Statistics Authority. As mentioned earlier by Dr. Valenzuela, we had the sixth Functional Literacy, Education, and Mass Media Survey in 2019. It was supposed to have been conducted earlier, but there was no budget provided by to us for the conduct of the survey. And so when we were denied a year earlier before this one, we again proposed for the budget to be provided. And fortunately, we were given the budgetary appropriations to conduct the FLEMS of 2019. And this was the sixth since the first time that we did the FLEMS. So in this presentation, I will actually be presenting the highlights of the results of the 2019 FLEMS that was conducted in the Philippines. So may I just check if they have already received my slides, my presentation? Otherwise, let me try to share again. So
Oh,
there.
there you go.
Yeah,
It's
thank you
working.
so much. Yeah, thank you so much.
All right,
Okay.
the floor is yours, ma'am.
Yeah, so for the outline of this presentation, I will walk you through a brief overview of the survey. Then, of course, the highlights of the results on basic literacy, functional literacy, and mass media exposure among Filipinos in 2019. Lastly, I will discuss some next steps in the preparation for the next conduct of the FLEMS because we receive several issues as we did some presentations on the current concepts that we are using for the FLEMS. Okay, for the brief overview, as mentioned earlier, the FLEMS is a nationwide household-based survey, and it is one actually of the designated statistical activities of the Philippine Statistics Authority by virtue of Executive Order 352. So every year, actually, Executive Order 352 is being updated, especially when there are new surveys to be done or when there are new methodologies that is developed, and we conduct that specific survey, new survey that will be so we update the Executive Order 352 or the list of yeah, statistical activities that is importantly used by the policymakers of this country. So this is the sixth since the time that we conducted it in 1989, then in 1994, 2003, 2008, 2013, and the 2019 FLEMS. For the objective of the FLEMS, this is to provide a quantitative framework that will serve as basis of policies and programs on the improvement of literacy and education status of the population. Now, in terms of the response rates of the survey, because response rates is one of the actually criteria wherein we can say that that the results of the survey is reliable. So for the household level, we had 97.7, a high response rate of 97.7% of the 41,686 eligible sample households. And we interviewed individuals. We had a response rate of 94.8% of the 119,800 individuals and household members 10 to 64 years old. Now, let me now give the highlights of the results on basic literacy. Basic literacy is the ability of a person to read and write and with understanding a simple message in any language or dialect. And we measured this basic literacy among Filipinos 5 years old and over, which was 94% as of 2019. That is 94% of Filipinos 5 years old and over were basic literate in 2019, and females registered a higher basic literacy rate of 94.5% compared to males that was at 93.2% in 2019. Now, across the survey years from 1989 to 2013, the basic literacy of population, this time 10 years old and over, has shown an increasing pattern with a slight decrease in 2003 at 93.4% from 93.9% in 2013. I mean, 93.9% in 1994.
Ma'am Wilma, excuse me.
Yes.
Can we request you please to turn on your camera
Okay.
para makita po ng ating mga guests over Facebook pages yung ating pong
Yeah, can you
magandang.
see
Ayan!
my
There you
picture
go. We
now?
can see you now,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Now, for population 10 years old and over in 2019 and 2013, this is the graph comparing the 2019 and the 2013. The 2019 are in blue shaded bar graphs, and 2013 are in orange shaded bar graphs. For both sexes, the basic literacy rate of population 10 years old and over uh, are the same for 2013 and 2019. Although the basic literacy rate of female are higher compared to those of males. Now, my screen are not moving. I'm sorry. I'm stuck to this screen now. Okay, thank you. So this is the basic literacy rate of population 5 years old and over by region. And as mentioned earlier by Dr. Valenzuela, among the Filipinos 5 years old and over in 2019, NCR registered the highest basic literacy rate of 97.6%, while the lowest was in BARM at 78.7%. This is the basic literacy rate of population 5 years old and over by sex and by age group. And we can see that population 15 to 19 years old had the highest basic literacy rate for both males and females at 98.1% for male and 99.1% for female. While those in the age group 5 to 9 years old, they had the lowest at 72.3% for male and 74.2% for females. Now, this shows us the basic literacy rate of population, again, 5 years old and over, by highest educational attainment. And Filipinos who are at least junior high school graduates or completers in the K-12 curriculum, or equivalently high school graduates in the whole old curriculum, have 100% basic literacy rate. And this is actually part of our definition that for those who have who are into, I mean, who have completed junior high, junior high school, graduates and completers in the K-12 curriculum are already considered as 100% basic literate. Now, persons who have no grade completed or who receive only childhood education have the lowest estimated basic literacy rate at 40.1%, if you can see in the lower base of this slide. Now, it is noted here that due to sampling and cross-tabulations, that resulted to 100% literacy rates do not necessarily imply complete absence of illiteracy. Now, the literacy, this is now the basic literacy rate of population 15 years old and over by employment status. This is on the left-hand side of this screen, and by class of worker on the right-hand side of this screen. And we can see that the basic literacy rate for both the employed and unemployed stood at 96.1% in 2019. By class of worker, Filipinos who are working for government or government-owned and controlled corporations have the basic literacy rate at 99.3%, while those working without pay in own family-operated farm or business had the lowest at 91.9%. And these are the two octagons on the left-hand side of this slide. Now, across urban and rural areas, Filipinos 5 years old and over with access to electricity This is the middle column of this slide, have a higher basic literacy rate than those without access to electricity. Those living in urban areas, which are shown in this slide as the higher two numbers here, have higher basic literacy rate than those in rural areas with and without access to electricity. For example, for those with living in the urban areas with access to electricity, the basic literacy rate of those 5 years old and over in those areas was 95.9% in 2019 compared to those in the rural areas with 92.5% in 2019. Again, that is for those with access to electricity, and you have lower percentages for those without access to electricity on the third column of this slide, or the second set of numbers. Now, let me now give the highlights of the functional literacy questions in the survey in 2019. Actually, functional literacy is defined as a significantly higher level of literacy, which includes not only reading and writing skills, but also numeracy skills. The skills must be sufficiently advanced to enable the individual to participate fully and efficiently in activities commonly occurring in his life situation that require reasonable capability of communicating by written language. Now, as far as the FLEMS is concerned, we defined functional literate persons as those who can read and write, compute and comprehend, and they have completed at least 4 years of secondary education. So in 2019, about 91.6% of Filipinos 10 to 64 years old were functional literate based on the 2019 FLEMS results. And this translates to 73 million out of 79.7 million in the same age group, 10 to 64 years old, who were considered as functional literate in 2019. Now, for purposes of the FLEMS, as I have mentioned, we have the operational definition as I have given earlier. And this operational definition has been applied actually in the computation of functional literacy across surveys since we started in 1989, using a questionnaire that is self-accomplished by household members 10 to 64 years old, and this was developed by the National Statistics Office in cooperation with the then Department of Education, Culture, and Sports. And that was as far back as 1989. Actually, it's now 2021. We really need to update this, and this would be one of the ways forward for the conduct of the next functional literacy and mass media survey. Now, the functional literacy rate of population 10 to 64 years old since 1989 is shown by this graph. It has been increasing from 1989 to 2008 until 2013, actually. I'm sorry. And for the 2019 results, functional literacy rates among population 10 to 64 years old across sexes and age groups were higher in 2019 than in 2013, with 91.6% for the overall, for both sexes, male and female, in 2019 compared to 90.3% in 2013. And among females, the functional literacy rate was 92.9 in 2019, while males was 90.2 in 2019. And this actually rates were higher than those in 2013. Okay, for the functional literacy rate of population 10 to 64 years old by region, again, just like in the basic literacy rate, the highest was in NCR at 96.5%. and the lowest also was in BARM at 71.6%. Females generally showed higher functional literacy rates than females 10 to 64 years old in 2019, as depicted in this slide. And this time, the age group 20 to 24 years old had the highest functional literacy rate. That was 96.9 for females and 95.1 for males. And the lowest was on the age group 60 to 64 years old, which was 84.2% for males and 85.3% for females, which are actually higher than compared to the age group 10 to 14 years old. Okay. This is the functional literacy rate, again, of population 10 to 64 years old by highest educational attainment. And Filipinos who are at least junior high school completers in the K-12 curriculum or equivalently high school graduates in the old curriculum have 100% functional literacy rate, which is actually part of the definition that we use for the FLEMS. We have been using for the FLEMS. And for the persons who have no grade completed or who received early childhood education have the lowest estimated functional literacy rate at 2.7%. The next one was the functional literacy rate of those in the elementary level, which was 71.9%. And for those who were elementary graduate in 2019, the functional literacy rate was 85.7%. And for the junior high school level, it was 92.8%. And for the completers of junior high school to the short cycle tertiary graduate, these are considered as 100% literacy, functional literacy rate. Now, this is the percent share of population 10 to 64 years old by level of literacy. When we define literacy actually as used in the FLEMS, level 0 are considered as cannot read and write. Level 1, they can read and write. Level 2, they can read, write, and compute with numerical skill. Level 3, they can read, write, compute, and comprehend with numerical and comprehension skills. And level 4, at least high school graduate in the old curriculum or at least junior high school completer in the K-12 curriculum. So part ng definition na 100% ang literacy rate, level 4, kapag high school graduate in the old curriculum or junior high school completer in the K-12 curriculum. And the results showed that 53.4% of Filipinos in the age group 10 to 64 years old had a literacy level of 4. Followed by those who can read, compute, and comprehend with numerical and comprehension skills regardless of education level, which is level 3, I should say, which was at 24.3%, which is the green shaded portion of this graph. Third is those whose literacy level falls under level 2 or those who can read, write, and compute with numerical skill at 13.8%. And the percentages were less than 5% even for levels 0, level 1, and we have some undetermined cases. Okay. Now, Filipinos 10 to 64 years old living in urban areas had generally higher functional literacy rate at 94.5% compared to those living in the rural areas at 87.9% according to the 29 FLEMS. Let me now give the highlights of the mass media exposure portion of the FLEMS 2019 survey. So mass media is a medium of communication such as newspapers, magazines, posters, signs, brochures, and flyers, television, radio, movies, plays and similar shows, internet, email, Facebook, Twitter, etc. That is designed to reach the mass of the people. Now, Filipinos 10 to 64 years old who are exposed to different forms of media registered high functional literacy rates in 2019. Among different forms of mass media, functional literacy rate range from 92.6%, that is on the rightmost part of this lower portion of this slide, from 92.6% for those who listen to radio. It should be television. Yeah, television. To 97.1% for those who use the internet for research work and email. I think for those who have lower functional literacy rate, then they tend to use radios, televisions. But for those with higher literacy rate, they tend to use emails, internet for research work, also social media. Yeah. Now, for functional literacy rate of population 10 to 64 years old exposed to various forms of or mass media by sex, generally females posted higher functional literacy rate than males across different forms of mass media that they are exposed to. Now, for the males who are in this forum, you may debate on this, but this is the results of the 2019 FLEMS. Now, the following slides present the results on mass media exposure of population 10 to 64 years old in 2019. And this one shows that Filipinos 10 to 64 years old typically watch television for 96% of those 10 to 64 years old. They have made calculations for 80.3% and 75.2% listen to the radio. Surfing on the internet for research work and email, 63.6% of the Filipinos 10 to 64 years old, and reading newspaper for 63.3%. Now, reading newspaper, the physical newspaper has actually gone down as we have now news in the internet. And for those writing a report correspondence, 43.9%, which were the least mass media exposure that they do, writing a report or correspondence. In urban areas, and these are the group of illustrations or pictures on the leftmost part of this slide, Filipinos 10 to 64 years old mostly watch television, 97.3%, surf the internet through social media for 82.5% of the population, and made calculations for 80.4% of the population 10 to 64 years old. And this population group were least exposed to reading a newspaper at 68.6%, or attending meetings at 67.2%, and writing a report or correspondence at 47%. And for those in the rural areas, we have lower rates than than those persons 10 to 64 years old living in urban areas for the same mass media exposure. For the purpose of surfing the internet of Filipinos, they use it more for social media access than for research work, because social media access of Filipinos 10 to 64 years old, 73.9% of them, while They surf the internet for 73.9% on social media and 63.6% on emails and research work. And you can see that females had higher rates at 77.1% exposed to social media compared to males at 70.8%. Now, among age groups and for the purpose of surfing the internet, for the bar graphs, the darker blue represents the use of the internet for research and email, where the light blue bar graphs represents the use of the internet for social media purposes. And we can see that, again, social media for all age groups is the purpose higher than using the internet for email or research. And we have higher for urban than in rural areas. Now, this is the purpose of surfing the internet of Filipinos 10 to 64 years old across regions in the country. And again, we can see that they use the internet more for social media. These are represented by the light blue bar graphs across all the regions. Yeah. And less of the email or research while they search the internet. This shows us that mass media the mass media exposure of Filipinos 10 to 30 years old enrolled in school in 2019. So typically, Filipino students in 2019 watch television, 97.2%. They read magazines at 88.8%, and they surf the internet to social media for 86.8%. And writing, report correspondence, exposure of Filipinos who were enrolled, Filipinos 10 to 30 years old, 62.7% for report and correspondence, and 61.9% for meetings, and 59.7% for newspaper. Yeah. In urban areas, 10 to 30-year-old attending school in 2019 mostly, again, watch television, surf the internet to social media, and read magazine for those living in the urban areas. And these rates are higher compared to those living in the rural areas. And we saw the same pattern as earlier, where the lowest mass media exposure of those enrolled 10 to 30 years old in 2019 were on writing report correspondence, attending meetings, and reading newspaper. This shows us the purpose of surfing the internet of Filipinos 10 to 30 years old internet users enrolled in school in 2019. They use it more for social media, as in earlier findings. And by age group, eto din, more on social media. Again, you would see the light blue bar graphs taller than the darker blue bar graphs in the upper portion of this slide. And again, higher for those in the urban areas compared to those in the rural areas. This would also show us for 10 to 30 years old who are internet users and enrolled in school in 2019, we can see again that surfing the internet are used for social media more than for, email or writing research paper. And these are shown by the taller light blue bar graphs compared to the darker blue bar graphs. And it's true for all regions. Now, this shows the results on Filipino households' ownership on ICT devices in 2019. So most Filipino households own cellular phones, which was 86.8% on the lower left-hand side of this slide, and television for 79.9%. On the other hand, only about 2 out of 5 households had personal computer or broadband internet or fiber internet or DSL. Now, ICT stands for Information and Communications Technologies. We all know that. For example, personal computer, including desktop, laptop, netbook, iPad, iPod, tablet, and also cellular phone or cable facilities, Sky Cable, Destiny, Signal, among others. Also television, radio, and broadband internet or fiber internet or DSL. About 96% of Filipino households owned at least one ICT device and use it mostly for studying or learning. So this might be good news for us, especially during this time that we are conducting classes through virtual means. Moreover, 7 out of 10 households had at least a household member familiar with open distance learning. Familiar or not with open distance learning, 8 of 10 households express willingness to engage in learning system if given the chance without restrictions. Of course, by open distance learning, you would all know this, we mean a system of learning which combines the methodology of distance education with concepts of open learning and flexible learning. For the concluding notes and next steps relative to the conduct of the next FLEMS, the FLEMS, as has been mentioned earlier by earlier speaker, has been providing government and education stakeholders statistics on literacy of the population, which has aided in crafting policies on literacy and developing programs and projects to address the needs of communities. With the fast-changing developments in the education sector, it has been noted that the results of this survey do not fully reflect students' performance in the national achievement tests and international large-scale assessments. So there is a need to actually shorten the frequency. There's a recommendation to shorten the frequency because we did it 6 years after in 2019, after the 2013 run of the FLEMS. And this will be to enable policymakers and education agencies to make timely decisions on policies and programs related to literacy and education. And so for our next steps, we are going to revisit the FLEMS, the content of the questionnaire itself, particularly the definition of functional literacy to include the 21st century skills, digital literacy, among others. And also, we need to revisit the measuring tool and the questionnaire and also the scoring system, which has been used, yung scoring system natin has been used since 1989, and we are already in 2021. There has been a lot of changes already through the years. And also, as mentioned earlier, there are actually requests to shorten the schedule of the implementation of the survey, and this would require actually a modification in EO 352 or the System of Designated Statistics. Because in the EO 352, it was mentioned there that we do this every 5 years, although nitong 2019 nga, we were not provided the budget for the FLEMS 5 years after the last conduct, and so we did it 6 years after the 2013 run of the FLEMS. And we are going to do some evaluation of the proposed changes. We have already started these, and once we are done with we are able to fine tune the revisions in terms of the content and the frequency. This will be endorsed to the PSA board by the Interagency Committee on Education Statistics, which is actually chaired by Director Masapol of DepEd for now. And this will be reviewed for approval by the PSA board, and we hope to implement this in the next round of the FLEMS. So that's all. Thank you very much. I will now stop sharing my slide.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Wilma, for the very informative presentation. We took note of the literacy situation of the Philippines and the next steps with regard to the administration of the next FLEMS. Our next speaker for this session is a professional statistician currently working as Senior Research Fellow at the Philippine Institute for Development Studies, or PIDS. He served as the Secretary General of the now defunct National Statistical Coordination Board, or NSCB. He is a member of various bodies and expert groups on statistics, such as the United Nations Global Pulse Data Privacy Advisory Group. This is the Commission on Higher Education's Technical Committee on Statistics and the PSA's Interagency Committee on Macroeconomic Statistics. He served also as the president of the Philippine Statistical Association Incorporated, which is the nation's professional organization on statistics. He finished his Bachelor of Science in Applied Mathematics, summa cum laude, in 1988 at the De La Salle University. He also obtained his Master's of Science in Statistics in 1989 and Doctor of Philosophy in Statistics in 1993 at the State University of New York at Stony Brook. He is also an adjunct faculty of the Asian Institute of Management and of De La Salle University. His main research interests are on poverty, social protection, gender, education, innovation, science and technology, and big data. And now to share with us the literacy research in the new normal, let us all welcome Dr. Jose Ramon Albert.
Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. My thanks to the organizers. If you could share my PowerPoint, thank you. I was asked to talk about what the FLEMS really means for us in this new normal, although quite honestly, I don't like this term new normal. It's too much of a cliche, because when you think of new normal, you always associate that with the pandemic, wearing masks. We won't wear masks forever. This is all going to be temporary. However, there are some things that old habits will change, but still, I don't like that term new normal. But anyways, allow me to firstly, although I didn't know that Wilma, ANS Wilma was also going to talk, but she already gave a very long presentation on the results. But I will just briefly, can you go to the next slide, discuss the survey, the 6 so far as ANS Wilma had been stated, conducted by the PSA. But I'd like to discuss one topic that's very close to my heart that wasn't discussed by Wilma, out of school children. As the FLEMS has actually a wealth of information on children excluded from education. In this wake of the new normal that we now have, it is very likely that the numbers have grown, and it is important for DepEd and all stakeholders to work together to bring them back to school and ensure that they are having fun so that they stay in school. I'd also like to discuss just very briefly also some survey results on literacy, especially functional literacy, although Wilma already gave this in detail, but she discusses for the entire population. I'd like to focus on the 10 to 17-year-olds because that's the focus of attention, especially for DepEd. I'd like to close also with some policy implications. Now, as I pointed out earlier, the FLEMS is already the 6th survey conducted by the PSA. Next slide, please. Yes. And one of the predecessor organizations, the then NSO, first conducted in 1989. It's giving us information on basic and functional literacy and mass media exposure of Filipinos, as was mentioned by Wilma. Next slide, please. Like many household surveys of the PSA, it's a the FLEMS is a nationally representative survey with its respondents chosen through a two-stage design. First, enumeration areas, roughly barangays, are chosen, and then within the selected barangays, housing units or dwellings are chosen as the ultimate sampling unit or the secondary sampling unit. Anyways, next slide, please. One of the key information found in the FLEMS as well as other household surveys of the PSA are the educational skills qualifications of the population, including whether or not children are currently in school, and if not, what are the reasons why they are not in school. According to the 2019 FLEMS, back please, there were around 28.3 million children between the ages of 5 to 17, of which 5.5% are out of school children. School participation is in favor of girls, which with a much bigger rate of out of school children among boys, 7%, corresponding to nearly 1 million boys who are not in school, as against girls, 4.1%, which is around 566,000 girls. Among the 1.6 million out of school children in 2019, 350,000 were 5-year-old, 280,000 were between 6 to 11, 431,000 were lower secondary aged, in other words, 12 to 15, while around 500,000 were senior high school aged, 16 to 17 years old. We know that boys are being left behind in school participation in the country, with boys outnumbering girls among out-of-school children 2 to 1. No? But we should all bear in mind that boys aren't just being left behind in school participation because results of the NAT, the National Achievement Tests, and international assessments like the PISA suggest that boys are also doing poorly in achievement compared to girls. Next slide, please. The out-of-school children rates already shown by Wilma, ANS Wilma, across regions show that beyond gender disparities, you also have to recognize geographic disparities, with BARM being the region with the greatest proportion of out-of-school children in double digits compared to other regions which are in the single digits, the least of which are in Western Visayas, Northern Mindanao, Ilocos, and Cordillera. Rural areas also have a bigger proportion of out-of-school children compared to urban areas. Now, next slide, when asked, why are the children not in school? The three main reasons reported are, first, kids lack personal interest. Second, kids are too young to be in school. Third, family income is not sufficient to send the children to school. Now, if you start drilling down on these reasons by age and sex, we will observe that among the 5-year-olds, the main reason why the kids are reported not to be in school, 82% of them, is that the kids are perceived to be too young for schooling. Siguro hindi nila maabot yung tenga, di ba? Yung most of the time, pag hindi nakakaabot ng tenga, we always think, ay, masyadong bata for schooling. Among 6 to 11-year-old out-of-school children, more than a fifth, in fact, a fourth, 4.5%, are reported to lack personal interest. And a similar proportion are reported to either have disability or illness problems. Among junior high school aged male out-of-school children, half are lacking interest, while among females, a quarter lack interest, and a fifth are not in school because family income is not sufficient. Among senior, a third lack interest, a quarter are not in school due to employment or they're looking for work, while among female counterparts, a quarter are not in school due to marriage and or the need to take care of children. Now, next slide, please. This notion, lack of personal interest, deserves much more discussion. You can hypothesize that maybe it's the parents who lack interest, given anecdotes of teachers that some parents are not caring enough to watch over their child's daily attendance in school. However, fieldwork that we did at PIDS suggests that child motivation and ability issues are even more common than parents not valuing education. In fact, when parents undervaluing education is more an exception to the rule, Often parents prefer that their children finish at least second year high school, and I don't even know where that term second year came from. No? But maybe they expect returns on investments to schooling at this point in time. No? Often, however, when you say lack of personal interest, what this really means is they have poor academic performance. When kids start falling behind in the early grades, especially when the reading comprehension is very low, it is difficult for them to catch up. So promoting non-readers beyond the early grades puts them at a trajectory to dropping out. Unfortunately, there's a tendency for us, no, in the school system na we like to promote because there is zero dropout, target. No? So there, we may actually be having this as an unintended consequence of these targets for zero dropouts. No? The buddy system used in some schools seems to be working to help behind those left behind in reading and learning to avert this lack of interest among kids. Now, moving on to the main topic, literacy, which is popularly understood as the ability to read and write, following a UNESCO definition way back in 1958. This is called basic literacy, as already was pointed out by Wilma, and it's differentiated from functional literacy, which is a little bit more complicated. You point out also, numeracy, communication skills, etc. No, but unfortunately, the way we operate, we define functional literacy is very different from the way other countries are also defining functional literacy. It should actually involve a continuum of learning. But anyways, let's move beyond these definitions for now. As far as basic literacy is concerned, just for the 10 to 64-year-old, can you go to the next slide? Wilma already suggested that we about 96% have basic literacy skills, but that also means 4%, corresponding to 2.8 million Filipinos, including 400,000 children between 10 to 17, cannot read and write. Among the kids 10 to 17, basic literacy is around 98% as of 2019. That's up also about 95% in 2013. And as pointed out by Wilma, basic literacy varies by sex in favor of females, also by region, with BARM having the lowest basic literacy compared with NCR with practically 99%, no, in NCR among the kids 10 to 17. Now, these days, in the wake of the so-called fourth industrial revolution, we need the people to have jobs. There's what's known as jobs of the future, and we need the workforce to go beyond having basic literacy skills. They require future skills, including functional literacy and digital literacy. However, what do this data on basic literacy really tell us? The truth is, the statistics are only giving us a barometer. No? They're telling us the problem, but they don't really offer guidance on what do we do to help people survive and succeed in a much more increasingly digital world. Wilma already suggested that our terms, even about basic and functional literacy, came about way back in 1989 when we in the FLEMS. No? But that's pre-digital age. So now we are living in a digital world. Anyways, the FLEM suggests that 9 out of 10 children between 10 to 17 are functionally literate. Higher literacy rates for girls than boys across regions. BARM still having the lowest functional literacy rate. But surprisingly, it's not NCR among the 10 to 17. It's Northern Mindanao having the highest rate, no? For the 10 to 17-year-old group. Next slide, please. Now, if we're looking at mass media exposure, we find that, as expected, literacy rates will be higher among those who read newspapers, magazines, posters, by 8 to 11 percentage points for basic literacy, and by as much as 12 to 14 percentage points for functional literacy for males and females. No? Next slide, please. Further, also as is to be expected, functional literacy will be higher among children who watch television, who listen to radio, who watch movies, compared to those who do not. Next slide, please. Literacy is also lower among the out-of-school children aged to 17 compared to the to those who are actually in school, no? By as much as 17 percentage points for basic literacy rates and 19 percentage points for functional literacy. Next slide, please. Literacy is also a function of socioeconomic status. Those with access to cell phones and broadband internet have higher functional literacy compared with those without access. Next slide. Children aged 10 to 17 with access to safe water have higher functional literacy rates than those without. Also, next slide, functional literacy rates are higher for those with access to safe sanitation than those without access. Next slide. So now let me focus on what did this all mean for policies, programs, and projects at DepEd and all the stakeholders. No? First and foremost, just because literacy rates are very high, 90%, 95%, whatever, and they're rising, policies cannot be complacent since there are actually measurement issues regarding the concepts of basic and functional literacy and even about digital skills. In the first place, there are biases about reported basic literacy. In PSA, just a person in the household, sino dito ang marunong magbasa at magsulat sa lengguwahe, sa any language, no? But a simple yes or no will not really capture whether or not they really know how to read or write. There's a continuum of literacy. And second, there might be the self-reports on what each individual interprets reading and writing to mean. In some cultures, just drawing a picture, writing na yun. And then in other cultures, when you say one respondent, as I already said, asking to report literacy about everybody in the household, that may introduce further noise because it's possible na because of prestige bias, yung gusto nila sabihin na okay kami dito, no? So that's why they will say everybody knows how to read when actually hindi naman, no? So that's so-called prestige bias, no? That happens in surveys. Don't always think that just because you have all these numbers, they're all correct, no? There are what are known as non-sampling errors, no? Now, of course, we do know that there are also diagnostic testing that's being done in functional literacy. However, even for me, I'm also wondering, even the way PSA is now operationalizing the term functional literacy na, basta marunong kang mag-compute na ganyan-ganyan, marunong kang titignan yung the way you comprehend. I'm also wondering, we need to rethink this because there are many international assessments on functional literacy, such as OECD's Program for the International Assessment of Adult Competencies, or PIAAC, World Bank's STEP Skills Measurement Program, UNESCO's Literacy Assessment and Monitoring Program, or LAMP, and the Adult Literacy and Life Skills Survey, or ALL. No? Many of these things are being done at the international level, but then if you start looking at how the other countries are defining functional literacy as against how we define functional literacy, there's a little bit of tangent because we tend to be very nice about our, to be very, basic even about functional literacy measurement. Also, digital skills could actually be integrated with functional literacy assessments in FLEMS, and I'm glad Wilma already mentioned that they may study this because I'm a bit worried. No? Right now, there's a disconnect. All of this is pre-digital world, and we know that basic functional digital skills are now life skills and are a prerequisite for higher level digital specialized skills, especially in the workplace. Now, there is a recent data from across ASEAN suggests that the Philippines lags among many ASEAN neighbors in digital skills. No? There is a survey done by DICT also in 2019 called the National ICT Household Survey. So when you compare our data from that survey together with the surveys from other countries, we will see that Philippines is faring just a little better than Thailand in all digital skills except on basic arithmetical using basic arithmetical formulas in a spreadsheet. In other words, di tayo marunong mag-Excel, no? We have just around 7% knowing how to use Excel, no? So this measurement is done by DICT in its NICTHS, but clearly there's scope to also integrate this in the FLEMS. Secondly, disparities that have been observed from all these literacy statistics will need to be addressed. Certainly, we know that DepEd has been pushing for inclusive education, and so with other stakeholders. We also know that the SDG, there is this leave no one behind agenda. So we ought to address all these gender disparities because we know that boys are being left behind. So we need to improve their school readiness. We may be needing to use different learning techniques for boys and girls, incorporating more activity-based learning tools, communicating higher education, academic expectation to boys because there's a tendency for us to say, ay lalaki yan eh, no? Okay lang, no? Kahit we need to actually say they need to do better. And we also need a lot more male teachers, at least for a few years. Right now, we still have too many women in the bureaucracy, no? The teaching bureaucracy. Perhaps DepEd needs to work with CHED to provide more teaching scholarships to males. No? Further, there's lagging performance in BARM, but right now there's no active partnership between DepEd and the BARM Ministry of Education. No? I understand there's a bureaucratic issue, but then still I'm worried that the children in BARM are really being left behind, not only in literacy, school participation, but quality of learning. No? Also, we know that all of you are doing many things, no? But still, the fact is that the data says that there are still some being left behind, especially in rural communities, no? So we need to reassess whether we're doing too much, maybe, and in all of the things that we're doing, how much of it is really getting big impact, no? But clearly, there's a need to strengthen the link between evidence, next slide, policy and programs for improving functional literacy and the quality of education. We've had the National Achievement Test. It's also having a wealth of information about reading skills, and it could be used for action. I mean, regularly we see MPS, mean percent scores, being shown as a headline summary, but we are not identifying the determinants of learning. We could actually examine anonymized microdata of the NAT, perhaps make this available to researchers, merge this data with all the data that's being collected by DepEd, such as heights and weights of children, and other relevant data in DepEd's Learning Information System, or LIS. Having all the children from a particular grade level take the NAT cannot be justified if the NAT is not all used to improve the literacy and quality learning of kids. No? Also, the improvement of literacy and reading needs certainly much more resources. Now, on the PowerPoint, you see here that we did a little bit of a simulation based on what's known as a non-parametric regression fit on the PISA data on reading performance and education spending, suggesting that if we need to actually spend 4 times what we are spending now just to reach the average global reading proficiency in OECD countries of 187 points. Doubling our current spending would increase our reading proficiency just by around 10% from our current reading performance in the PISA. Literacy, finally, next slide, is really, as measured in the FLEMS, as I was suggesting earlier, is actually largely traced back to poverty and multiple interacting barriers to realizing their full learning potential, from large families, transients of families, unstable home conditions, children without adult guidance, accumulated effects of chronic hunger and undernutrition. So ultimately, if we want to improve literacy, it lies also in long-term poverty reduction policies, programs, and projects meant to improve the resilience of children and communities to various risks in their welfare. So it's crucial for DepEd and all the stakeholders to work hand in hand through a whole of nation approach to improve literacy for everyone. Functional literacy and even basic literacy is likely to decline with an increase of out-of-school children that's probably happening as a result of the pandemic. We should realize that we now face a new future in the wake of this pandemic. Conditions about COVID are affecting demand for education due to perceived risks, due to either safety reasons and or financial constraints, the ranks of out-of-school children have likely increased. And even those among those currently in school, now we're using blended learning, but the quality of learning cannot be assured now. We have a lot of work to do, and everything starts with examining data, supported of course by resources. Maraming salamat po sa inyo lahat.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gillian and Dr. Albert, for taking the time to share with us some critical data on the current literacy situation in the country and their implications to policy. You know, it is interesting to note that despite being hailed as the selfie capital of the world, the Philippines lag behind digital skills among our ASEAN counterparts. So at this point, we will proceed to the open forum. May we remind those who are in the Microsoft Teams to kindly click the raise button if you wish to speak. Also, please wait for the moderators to acknowledge you before speaking. And once called, we encourage you to turn on your video if possible, then state your name and organization represented. Other participants may also utilize the chat box for comments and questions. For the participants who are tuned in via DepEd's Facebook page, please do not hesitate to engage with us through the comment box. Our moderators will be monitoring it too. So we will have 15 minutes for the open forum. May we call again Ms. Susan Carandang to facilitate the open forum for us. Take it away, Ms. Susan.
Thank you, Ms. Mel. I now open the floor for your questions or comments on the last presentations. Are there comments from the audience? Okay. It seems all are happy with the presentations. Nobody is raising questions or comments.
Yeah, Miss Susan.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, I'm very happy to listen again to Dr. Albert no, after that health challenge that he has undergone. And thank you, Dr. Albert, one of our major user, if I may say, of the data, from the different surveys that we do. So he was able to highlight the issues for, I mean, he has crunched the data no for 10 to 17 years old kasi hindi kasama doon sa breakdown ng aming results po yon. And thank you Dr. Albert, Sir Toots, for the resources that you have mentioned. We will be looking at the different international resources that you have mentioned in your report, while we will be reviewing the concepts and also the metrics that we are using for the FLEMS. Thank you, Sir Toots.
Well, thank you, Wilma. You know, I actually sitting down for too long is very tough for me because, you know, as you mentioned, I this year cancer has recurred for me. I had to undergo surgery, major surgery, to remove the remaining half of my colon. 23 years ago, they removed me. I removed half of my colons. They made me a semicolon. Now I am a period. They removed everything already. No? So now I just have a colonoscopy bag, and it's tough just sitting down. So, but anyways, I'm just struggling for this. But anyways, I'm when I started examining the phlegms just recently after I got the invite, no, I didn't know that Wilma will also be here, but I'm glad Wilma gave much information. Nonetheless, I think that it's going to be important to start re-examining because most of the surveys, as I already said, are the phlegms particularly has been initiated in a pre-digital world, no? But now, you know, when you think of literacy, it's not just even statistical literacy, no? That's another concept that has a different nuance, no? So we will need to sort of re-examine all the different international assessment metrics, because I think we can learn from all of this and try to examine. Because right now, I mean, I just look at rich countries, and when I see the term functional literacy, they're having very big numbers about claims that some people are big portions of their population are not functionally literate, and yet we report only 10% are not functionally literate in the Philippines. So there's a disconnect, you know, obviously because our definitions are not the same, no? But it's important, no, that we start re-examining all of these definitions, because as I said, even digital literacy. What do you mean by digital literacy? Right now, there's an SDG indicator, and the ICT used that, but they only measured 6 out of the 9 skills. And supposedly now there's work that suggests they have to restart the change even the skills measurement. But I think these are things that we need to examine. Of course, everything starts with our own understanding, no? But we also have to recognize that there are statistical standards in the international community. So it will be awkward for us to come up with numbers that are not believable if if other countries are measuring it in a certain way and then we're doing it in another way, no? But nonetheless, of course, as I said, statistics have to be credible first for us, but still we have to think of the larger perspective, no? Thank you, Wilma.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sir Toots. If there are no questions or comments, wala na
Ma'am
talaga.
Susan?
Okay,
Ma'am
yes.
Susan, I think
Yes.
Ma'am Susan, Mr. Ed De La Torre is raising his hands.
Oh, yeah, I can see it. I can see it in my in my desktop. Okay.
Yeah,
Sir Ed is acknowledged.
thank
Sir
you
Ed.
for giving me a few minutes. I think two things very quickly. I really like to, well, first of all, I appreciate the FLEMS report and the analysis. The one big takeaway I have from it is the proposal that we should do this more often than every 5 years. I think, is there any way, for example, even as a sense of this assembly, and later maybe because the LCC is the one in a way sponsoring, to really push for it? Because I really feel maybe ideally every 3 years is a better sequence. And it's hard work, but it is not really that expensive. And I think it's a worth investment of public money to track our progress, especially now, the comment of Professor Albert that this is pre-COVID. So I think better if we set the next one, if not 2022, at least 2023. Having said that, this is a small item which I picked up again from Prof. Albert. I agree with you. I think we need a special effort to increase statistical literacy, because there's always a debate about surveys, especially when it comes to elections, but not just elections, performance on COVID, things like that. Even though there's still basic numeracy issues, I think this whole idea of how to understand large numbers and what's the sample and how credible it is. If not addressing everyone, at least the supposedly 100% functionally literate who finished senior high school to college. I think if we look at those and do a good, if not questionnaire or diagnosis of statistical literacy, it might be pretty low. And maybe we should increase that, because they are the ones who will be vocal and who will be using this big data, including, and I would add maybe as a subsample, government and public officials and public intellectuals, because national discourse is strongly influenced by statistics, because no one has a perfect sample. We have only anecdotal, and I personally feel the need, and I would be interested if you could develop a simple, so maybe separate from PLEMS, a simple tool to do a quick targeted the 100% functionally literate Filipinos on statistical literacy, I would welcome that very much. And I think it would give us a very good service, not just in general, but especially to help improve the public discussion on what the majority of Filipinos think, what the majority of Filipinos choose. Because I think that's an important element of literacy at a comprehensive national level. Because all of us, we have our personal opinion, but we want to know how representative are we? Are we very minorities? Are we part of a growing majority? So yes, thank you very much to our two presenters. This has been a very enlightening for me and very educational exercise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sir Ed. Ma'am Susan, we have a question here from SDO Isabella Quirino National High School. They're asking how to increase digital literacy in adult citizens. During the pandemic, the world has switched to the digital platforms for almost every need of life. But at the same time, we have seen the challenges faced by many elderly people to use digital platforms for day-to-day living. What are some suggestions to address these challenges and increase digital literacy among elders?
Who would like to respond to that question? Dr. Toots or Ma'am Wilma?
Well, I can say that currently the Department of ICT has a, I think they call it the Literacy Academy. I forget what it is, no, but they have certain agencies that have directed programs, not just to the elderly, but even to certain vulnerable populations, other vulnerable populations. No? So because the thing is that sometimes right now, whenever you see aggregate statistics, they're just telling you many things about everyone. No? But then we realize that each set of people will probably need a different kind of intervention. The elderly have difficulty even reading because because they have maybe physical problems reading. Their eyesight are not as good as they used to be. Even me, I mean, I used to have 20/20 vision, but now I have to use my glasses. No. And I think they're even, they need to be further improved now. But anyways, the same when it comes to, you think of not just the elderly, even nung nagkaroon ng ayuda for people and people were going to be given, let's say, money through GCash or something. Many people did not even know what GCash was, why? Because we haven't been using it because most of us have been so pre-digital. We like to just use cash, no? Cash on delivery. Even if we use apps to order something, we will still, with Lazada or whatever, we will still pay cash. Whereas it makes more sense that actually we use digital money, e-money. But understandably, there have been some issues because people were afraid of using e-money. Baka manakaw daw yung pera mo or things like that. So there are trust issues. But, so DICT is trying its best to address this. But I hope DICT will work together with DepEd. And I think as far as I understand, there are now currently talks between DepEd and DICT to actually work on this. But we have to recognize iba-iba, no? Dapat iba-iba yung ating interventions. Something different from the very young, something different for the very elderly, something different for the rural communities. We cannot have the same kinds of interventions. They will not work. One size fits all strategies never work.
We have another question here addressed to Ma'am Gillian from Flora Arellano. We have been seeing data on phlegms in reading. How do we address the quantitative results of these data in terms of interventions to improve the universal literacy and the quality in reaching out to the out-of-school youth? Ma'am Gillian?
Wilma, you're muted.
Yeah, thank you very much. But as mentioned by Dr. Albert earlier, statistics provides the barometer, But for how this is going to be used for policy and programs, actually, these are to the policymakers. And the PIDS can have some recommendations. They do a lot of studies, also the NEDA, the DepEd, the CHED, the TESDA maybe even as part of the education institution. They are the ones who are going to use the data that we provide from the Philippine Statistics Authority in crafting relevant policies and programs to address whatever like out of school youth issues, for example. Thank you for the question anyway.
Ma'am Wilma,
Okay.
you might want to respond to the concerns of Dr. Sir Ed earlier.
That of Dr. Sir Ed
Sir Ed,
earlier.
yeah.
I thought the response of Dr. Albert, I mean Sir Toots, is already sufficient. But yes, as I have already presented in the later portion of my slides, we have actually received a request for a shorter interval of the FLEMS. So we are taking note of his recommendation for every 3 years. But this will be discussed in the Interagency Committee on Education Statistics, in which the trifocal agencies on education are members, and it's actually chaired by Director Masapol of the DepEd. So we're going to discuss whether 3 years would really be the interval for the FLEMS, or maybe 2 or even 4 years. So we are yet to discuss this in the IACN, but we are taking note of the suggestion of Mr. De La Torre. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ma'am Wilma. Are there more questions? Sorry, I can't see it in my desktop. So if there are no more questions, I'd like to give the floor back to Ms. Mel.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Susan. We would like to thank everyone for participating actively in the open forum for the first plenary session. It was indeed a healthy discussion. So to recognize our esteemed guest speakers and facilitator, let us move on to the awarding of Certificate of Recognition. This certificate is awarded to Ms. Wilma A. Guillen for her meritorious role as resource speaker in the 2021 National Literacy Conference with the theme Literacy Learning Innovations in the New Normal Towards Sustainable Development, held via MS Teams on September 6 to 7, 2021, given the 6th day of September 2021.
Thank you very
This certificate of recognition is also awarded to Dr. Jose Ramon G. Albert for his meritorious role as resource speaker. And thank you, Ma'am Guillen. Thank you, Dr. Albert. We also like to award the certificate of recognition to Ms. Susan M. Carandang for her meritorious role as facilitator during this plenary session 1. Signed by Diosdado M. San Antonio, Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction, Chairperson of Literacy Coordinating Council. Congratulations, Ms. Guillen, Dr. Albert, and Ms. Carandang. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We will now proceed to the plenary session 2 with the topic Blended and Flexible Learning. May I request the LCC Secretariat Head, Mr. Enrico R. Mendoza, to introduce our guest speakers for this session. Sir Eric, please.
Thank you, Ma'am Mel. Yes, on behalf of the LCC Secretariat, I would like to greet all of you here at the MS Teams meeting room, as well as those who are currently tied in with us through live streaming at the Department of Education and LCC's Facebook pages. But before introducing this year's NLC speakers, let me first acknowledge the attendance of our officials and staff from the Curriculum and Instruction strand of DepEd. And we are so happy that ASEC Alma Rubitorio, our Assistant Secretary, is here together with her team from the Bureau of Curriculum Development, Director Joyce, Bea, Director Nelia, from BLR, Director Aris and Director Raul, from ALS, Director Almeida, thank you, and from TEC, or the Teacher Education Council Secretariat, Director Ranvi Ma'am Lori, CO Division Chiefs, Education Supervisors and Program Specialists, and EAs and Technical Assistants from the different offices of the CI Strand. Thank you very much po for your support. Our first presenter for this plenary session is the current Director 4 of the Bureau of Learning Delivery, or BLD, of the Department of Education here in the Philippines. Prior to her appointment as Director, she was a former Assistant Schools Division Superintendent and Officer in charge of the Office of the Schools Division Superintendent of Schools Division Office of Tuguegarao City and Cagayan Region 2. She has extensive background and experience in the field of education, having served the DepEd for the past 34 years in various positions: a high school teacher, secondary school principal, education program supervisor, assistant schools division superintendent, and officer in charge of the Office of the Schools Division Superintendent. She is a graduate of Doctor of Philosophy in Educational Management, Master of Arts in Teaching English, and Bachelor of Science in Secondary Education. She is a resource speaker, trainer/lecturer, demonstrator in various training programs and seminars, writer and recipient of numerous awards for educators. In 2017, she was awarded Gintong Parangal para sa Edukasyon Pamumuno under the Values Education or Advocacy Program of Fortune Life in partnership with Mary Lindbergh International and DepEd. Friends and colleagues, to share with us innovations and insights on learning delivery for basic education amidst the pandemic and beyond, let us all welcome with a resounding virtual applause the Director 4 of the DepEd Bureau of Learning Delivery, Dr. Leila Piniera Ariola.
Thank you very much, Sir Eric, for that kind introduction. May I please be allowed to share my screen? Sorry. Online ko. Online. Is my presentation on the screen already?
Yes, ma'am, we can see your presentation already. Thank you.
So once again, let me say isang magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. First and foremost, let me thank the Literacy Coordinating Council for making the Bureau of Learning Delivery part of this 2021 National Literacy Conference. And this morning, I am tasked to share you how learning delivery or how learning is delivered during this time of pandemic. And my focus would be on the implementation of blended distance learning. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented challenges and changes to the global community and that of our education system. The face-to-face learning delivery platform is still not allowed, as the health, safety, and well-being of all those involved in the delivery of learning is the utmost consideration of the Department of Education. And so there is no other way to deliver learning and to continue learning if not through distance learning, where learners can still master the required learning competencies even within the confines of their home. So the pandemic has actually tested the readiness and stability of all institutions, and that includes the Department of Education. And despite the Herculean task that came along, with the implementation of distance learning delivery modalities, the DepEd has remained steadfast in its mandate to continue with the delivery of basic education amidst the uncertainties. So DepEd shall sustain and build on its gains over a school year of implementing distance learning. The outbreak of COVID-19 has been a challenge. It has brought huge impact, particularly on the education of our young children, the kindergarten, those who are in Key Stage 1, the learners with disabilities, and also those children who cannot really manage their own learning. And reality will tell us that this group of learners will certainly be needing the guidance of learning facilitators and that of adults as caregivers. So on screen are some challenges that the teachers, parents, and that of learners face as we implement distance learning. And you will note that we are really challenged as to the availability of digital resources, the readiness of parents, even teachers, to facilitate multiple learning delivery modalities. Our learners are also challenged as to their capacity to complete self-directed learning tasks without adults or learning facilitators to help them. And among others, we are also concerned of the emotional well-being of our learners. So all this on screen are some of the challenges that are being faced by not just learners, but also parents, as well as our teachers. But the Department of Education, for the Department of Education, we're looking at these challenges as opportunities to deliver education in this time of pandemic. So we all rallied behind the call of our beloved Secretary Magdolis Briones for education must continue. All these opportunities were concretized into plans of action, and living up to its commitment of ensuring educational continuity, the Department of Education developed the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan, which offers education interventions, plans of action that respond to the basic education challenges brought about by COVID-19. So the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan streamlines the K-12 curriculum into the most essential learning competencies, which are delivered in multiple delivery modalities. I'd like to share you an assertion of our beloved Secretary, if only to stress and ensure for education must continue. And let me read. We have come out with a variety, with menu of options. Online is not the only answer. There's a huge debate in the Philippines on how useful or whether it is really a good way of teaching learners. So we have online, we have televisions, we have radio. If all else fails, then learning modules are being printed so that this will be delivered in various pickup points or either parents or for the village officials to distribute to the learners. This very statement of our beloved Secretary will communicate to us that indeed, in whatever situation the child is, then there's a mode of learning that's readily be offered to our school children. There was a need to change the learning delivery landscape from the usual face-to-face learning through distance learning. The transition to distance learning has created unprecedented challenges in learning delivery specifically. And responding to this and recognizing the diversity of situations, the Department of Education developed the self-learning modules. But I'd like to mention that these self-learning modules actually started from ADM modules. So the ADM modules were the very modules used to deliver learning while the children are temporarily out of school. So that's from our alternative delivery mode. And that the self-learning modules were used as the primary learning resource for this distance learning. So we have the printed, we have the digital SLMs, and these are used to support the modular distance learning. And these SLMs, or the self-learning modules, were being converted to different content and accessible formats. So we have ESLMs, we have video lessons with sign language interpretation for online distance learning. We have educational television, audio lessons for radio-based instruction. And these are also converted, or a number of educational technologies were also created, including platforms to support distance learning, so that options are available to all our learners, to families, and that of communities. So we have the DepEd Commons, we have the DepEd Learning Management System. We deliver instruction also through video conferencing. There's text messaging that's being done by our learners. We have the DepEd TV, YouTube. We have the DepEd Facebook. And of course, our DepEd LRM, DepEd Learners Portal, to name a few. So these learning materials in different content and accessible formats are actually uploaded in the DepEd Commons and also in the DepEd Learning Management System and the DepEd Portal for easy access by the learners, by parents, and that of others who are wanting to facilitate learning of our learners. So this slide is going to show you the available learning resources that we have in the Department of Education to deliver instruction in the different learning delivery modalities. So for modular distance learning, we have the SLM, ESLMs. I'd like to mention that textbooks, learning activity sheets, and other supplementary materials are also used to support the SLMs. And this is not just for modular distance learning, but for all other learning delivery modalities. So for online distance learning, we have the ESLMs. Our teachers also, or the teachers using the ODL prepared or created their own videos and slide decks. The TV episodes are converted in MP4 format, and these are all uploaded in the DepEd LMS, the DepEd LRMDS, and the DepEd Commons. For the educational TV, as you may know, we have our own DepEd TV. So we have TV video lessons. We have the TV episodes, and these are also shown in our own DepEd TV channel, and we also have our DepEd YouTube channel. And for our radio-based instruction, so we have audio lessons available, and our schools do even have their own local radio stations. So distance learning happens purely at home, of course, with the parents and other significant adults in the life of the learner, supporting their learning. But we're allowed, our teachers get to see the learners in their respective homes for possible instructional support. The distance learning can be modular or online or a combination of both. And TV and radio-based instruction can also be used to supplement learning in areas with access to TV networks and radio stations with programs dedicated to deliver the DepEd TV and radio-based instruction. But I'd like to mention that the Department of Education is pushing for the intensification of the use of DepEd TV and radio-based instruction to support learning this coming school year. So SLMs are delivered to learners to their respective homes through the assistance of stakeholders, and we really thank so much our external stakeholders for facilitating the delivery and retrieval of self-learning modules. And it's important to note that parents are given the option to choose any of the distance learning delivery modalities they think will greatly be beneficial and or applicable to their kids or children. So they just need to coordinate with the school. Of course, one of the considerations here would be the availability of digital resources or devices for them to, for example, should they choose ODL, then they get to have the assurance that they have the children have the digital device and that they have internet connectivity. And for this school year, we are actually pushing the implementation of the blended distance learning, of course, to reduce our reliance to the printed modules. So the swift shift to distance learning was a powerful and laudable start, but our experiences over the past school year taught us a lot of lessons for improvement and many lessons for life. So because the utmost consideration is the health, safety, and well-being of learners, of teachers, of non-teaching personnel, and all those involved in the delivery of learning. That includes our stakeholders who continue to work with us and support us. The distance learning delivery modality will still be implemented until the face-to-face learning is allowed. But while we implement practically the same distance learning as that of the previous school year, for this school year, DepEd is pushing for the implementation of blended distance learning. And cannot really be business as usual. We need to revisit our responses implemented. There are a number of innovative initiatives and promising practices as reported by our regional offices, schools division offices, and that of our schools during our PIRs, consultative meetings with them, and that of FGDs, and all these are actually commendable. The primary challenge that we faced last year was more on the need to respond to the requirements of distance learning in terms of learning resources, in terms of educational technologies. So that includes development, production, distribution, retrieval, conversion of these materials to different content formats, capacitating our teachers in the implementation of the multiple learning delivery modalities, and that of the parents also who took and who is taking actually the lead role in facilitating learning while their children are learning from home, and intensifying partnerships and linkages with stakeholders. So we did all this last year. We continue ensuring that the learning resources are provided to our school children. But for this year, we need to refocus, giving priority to mitigating learning loss, saving the learners from dropping out, and ensuring their health and well-being. So we need to pivot to quality this year. So while we remain hopeful to open schools, even for a limited face-to-face only, when the overall situation improves, we are ready to fulfill our constitutional mandate in the Department of Education in supporting our learners and teachers in any form of learning available. And as I mentioned earlier, we're pushing for the use of blended distance learning. And so regional offices are instructed to enhance the implementation of the basic education learning continuity plan, which includes maximizing the use of DepEd TV and radio-based instruction to reduce reliance on printed modules. We need to re-envision learning with technology. But of course, we are happier if online distance learning is going to be implemented. First and foremost, there's an opportunity for our learners to get to collaborate with their teachers face-to-face, though virtually. And so for learners adopting the blended TV or radio-based instruction, modular learning, and ODL, they should have the following. So they have to have the digital device. There has to be an internet connectivity, printed modules or modules, self-learning modules in printed form or digital format should be available. And of course, the TV set, which may be optional if and when the radio set is available. So it's either the child is going to adopt the TV-based instruction or the radio-based instruction. So TV may not be required, as DepEd TV can be accessed on the DepEd YouTube channel. And we're here on screen is the link where our children can access our TV episodes. Okay, So all they need to do is just to have the digital device for them to access the TV episodes. For learners adopting the blended TV and modular, of course, the digital device is needed. The printed and digital SLMs or digital SLMs should also be made available, and still the TV set may be optional. The TV set, as I mentioned earlier, may not be required as TV programs for this particular modality, may be given through MP4 or other digital storage device. So I mentioned earlier that our DepEd TV episodes are being converted to MP4 format so that even without our learner having access to a TV channel, then they can still get to enjoy watching the TV episodes converted to MP4 format. And for learners adopting the blended TV and ODL, so the child must have the digital device. Internet connectivity is a must, and of course, the TV set, if available, but it can also be optional for the reason I mentioned earlier already. For us to ensure that learning is going to happen, it's really necessary for our teachers to prepare the weekly home learning plan. And this is so important on the part of the learning facilitator. So the learning facilitator need to be familiar with the contents and format of the self-learning module. So with that, it's important that our teachers also need to orient our parents on the different parts of the SLM, and that the weekly home learning plan ensures that the learner can finish the assigned tasks for a specific week and still find time to rest, relax, enjoy their hobbies, do physical exercises, have family bonding, and even doing household chores. So the learner is provided with a weekly home learning plan, and in that weekly home learning plan, the daily home learning tasks of the learners are actually specified, and this is created by the teacher. The weekly home learning plan actually provides the following: the learning competencies targeted on a specific week, the weekly tasks in all learning areas based on the self-learning module, the time allotment for doing the task, the mode of submission of completed tasks, the time allotment for consultation with the teacher and learning facilitator, and reminders for daily routines, breaks, and other off-task activities. So as parents and learning facilitators, it's actually their role to guide their children in accomplishing the tasks indicated in the weekly home learning plan and to ensure that their children work on to meet the time frame of completion actually set by the teacher. There are sample class programs and weekly home learning plans provided to our teachers for the different combinations of blended distance learning, and these are just samples. So you will note that if you're going to look at this sample weekly home learning plan, the child and that of the parents are actually very much guided on how to go about the combination of the subcategories of blended distance learning. So these are just samples of the weekly home learning plan. And along with the weekly home learning plan is the sample individual monitoring plan that we all require our teachers to be accomplishing, because the preparation of this individual monitoring plan will certainly guide the teacher as to how he or she would be providing instructional support to the learners. It tells a story about the significant progress of learners. It also tells a story whether the child was able to reach mastery of the competencies as contained in the learning plan. And here is another tool, and this is found in DepEd Order number 31 series of 2020, which is the interim guidelines of assessment and grading in light of the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan. And this self-monitoring tool can be used by our teachers to record evidences of learning and give feedback to the learners and that of teachers. So here, the teachers must consider the needs of learners. And while the accomplishment of this tool, as said in DepEd Order number 31 series of 2020, is not mandatory, it's actually highly recommended, and we appeal to our parents as much as possible and that of our learners to ensure that this tool is going to be filled up, because this is going to provide information on what particular intervention or remediation activities should a teacher prepare for the individual child. So you'll note that there are, in this self-monitoring tool, there's a portion where the learner is going to reflect on what happened during the day. For example, anong mga asignatura ang napag-aralan mo ngayon? Kumusta ka sa mga aralin mo ngayon? Alin sa mga ito ang madali para sa iyo? May mga gusto ka bang itanong sa inyong guro tungkol sa aralin? Ilista mo dito ang iyong mga tanong. And you will note that this is going to cover the whole week. And so it's going to be the responsibility of the teacher to take a look on this and plan for whatever support that he or she would be giving to the child. And aside from the learner, there's also a portion where the parent needs to accomplish. Let me read the questions. Nagawa ba ng inyong anak ang kanyang mga gawain sa paaralan ngayong araw? Kumusta ang pag-aaral ng iyong anak? May mga gusto ka bang iulat or itanong sa kanyang guro? Isulat dito ang iyong mga puna, question at mga tanong. So we appeal that our parents will also be accomplishing this, because this is a very good feedback data for our teachers to actually decide on what support should be given to the learners. And so, with the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan and the show of support of both internal and external stakeholders, DepEd is confident that it will remain its commitment to deliver education amidst this pandemic. So we're really so hopeful that with all of us working together, we'll be able to implement the blended distance learning. Our school children actually needs our support. So this health crisis continue to pose significant challenges in the delivery of learning, but it also continues to offer us valuable lessons and real priorities in education as well as in life. So the challenges, the opportunities, the lessons communicate to us that we need to continue to rethink, reimagine how best we could deliver education so that no single learner is left behind. So we just need to continue thinking how to deliver learning much better while our learners are on distance learning, with the assurance that all learners have the same chances for education, whether it's going to be high-tech, whether it's low-tech or no-tech. We really have to ensure that education must happen. And so, as I mentioned earlier, it actually takes the whole school community to help the child. It takes the whole school community to build back better. So admittedly, the COVID-19 is a life-changing event, but let's never allow it to kill the dreams of our learners. With that, I say thank you very much, and good morning.
Thank you very much, Director Leila. Let us all show our love and appreciation for Dr. Ariola by sending her our virtual round of applause. Thank you again, Director Ariola. If you have questions for Dr. Ariola to answer, we will have an open forum later after all the speakers for this session have finished their respective presentations. Thank you again, Director Leila. Our next presenter serves as Secretary Leonor Magtolis Briones' lead executive committee official in strengthening and expanding the implementation of the Alternative Learning System, or ALS, program nationwide since it became the administration's centerpiece of basic education in 2016. With her at its helm, the ALS task force formulates and reviews policies, executes reforms, and operationalizes programs and projects that lead to the level up of DepEd's Second Chance Basic Education program. Our guest speaker also headed the Public Affairs Service of the Department of Education, and under her management from 2016 to 2019, PAS, or Public Affairs Service, significantly improved its protocols and guidelines, community strategy, content development, media relations, public assistance, and creative and technical assistance to effectively and efficiently deliver DepEd's mandates and accomplishments to its various stakeholders through traditional and new media. She spent her initial years of public service in the legislative branch of the government. Prior to her appointment at DepEd, she served as a policy specialist and agenda manager of the Senate Committees on Health, Peace, and Finance, while on detail to the office of Senator Chufisto Gingona III from 2013 to 2016. She also worked as a social development specialist at the Senate Economic Planning Office and legislative staff of former Senator Manny Villar years prior. Her substantial background in discourses on social development, public policy, and governance, along with her experiences in management of donor-funded projects and advocacy, proved to be significant in her role as the first Assistant Secretary for Alternative Learning System. Our distinguished guest has obtained her bachelor's degree in journalism and master's degree in public administration from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, to share with us updates, innovations, and ways forward for the alternative learning system. Let us all warmly welcome Assistant Secretary G.H.S. Ambat.
To the distinguished guests and presenters and to the participants in this 2021 National Literacy Conference, good morning. I am G.H. Ambat. I am Assistant Secretary for Alternative Learning System, and I am happy to be joining you in this important event. As you may know, COVID-19 posed a challenge to the education sector, and it's happy to note that we all are one in recognizing our roles and in ensuring that learning and education will continue come what may. So today I will share with you updates on the alternative learning system. This will cover what we have been doing in the past year, and some information about ALS 2.0 because I've been asked what it is, and of course some salient provisions of the law. So I start with good news. In the last 5 years, we have been reaching more out of school youth and adults. From 2016 to school year 2020-2021, we have enrolled 3.6 million. This is compared to 2005 to 2015, this is higher by 57% on a year-per-year basis. Of those who are enrolled from 2016 to 2020, 67% have completed their learning objectives in the program. Under the current administration, a yearly average of 130,000 learners obtained their elementary and secondary diploma through ALS. This slide shows the enrollment pre-pandemic. during the pandemic and this coming school year. So as you may notice, in 2019-2020, we reached 800,000 learners. By 2020-2021, when the pandemic hit, we are down to 599,365. And for this coming school year, enrollment is still ongoing, but our numbers are still down. I mean, we are about 20%, even less than 20% of our enrollment from the previous year. So what are the challenges in enrollment and in learning delivery during the time of pandemic? So with regard to the low enrollment, DepEd we are unable to do our usual literacy mapping, advocacy, and social mobilization during the months that we are supposed to do it. Of course, this is considering the lockdowns, and some of our teachers were not yet vaccinated. We are not yet 100% vaccinated. So there's worry about going house to house, explaining that there is such a program of government so that those who have dropped out can continue schooling in a flexible manner, and that in a manner that recognizes their prior learning and experience. Also, we took note that our potential ALS learners, most of them are working, prioritize livelihood over education. As the economy contracted, they would rather find work first over studying. So the economic downturn really hit our enrollment. And then, since most of our learners come to the program so that they will be able to have their elementary or secondary diploma, the uncertainty in the administration of the A&E test also discouraged them from enrolling. Of course, we were able to remedy this when we introduced the portfolio assessment, so that the completers of school year 2019-2020, as well as 2020 to 2021, will be assessed through the portfolio assessment. And we will be happy to share with you in another conversation the results and our experience in portfolio assessment. There's also difficulty in the delivery of the basic literacy program. As you may know, teaching adults how to read and write is already challenging even if it's face-to-face. So what more if it's remote? So these are some of the hindrances. And yearly, in the past, pre-COVID, we have had about 70 to 80,000 learners in the basic literacy program. But now, in the previous school year with COVID, it was down to about 35,000, which is still good. However, we hope we would be able to reach more eventually as the health conditions, the health situation recovers or improves. We thank our teachers for not giving up, for ensuring that our out-of-school youth and adults will still be given the opportunity to study in a very difficult situation. So the learning modalities used, of course, is modular, blended learning. So many have, they deliver the modules and then they chat with their learners through Facebook Messenger and other social media platforms. Our radio-based instruction expanded as well with the lockdowns in some regions from about 5% or 10% of the divisions offering radio-based instruction. With the challenge of COVID, they were able to rise to the occasion, and almost all the divisions in certain regions are offering radio-based instruction. Of course, there's also online learning for our learners and teachers with gadgets, access to internet, and time also to go into online learning. The latest learning delivery modality that we were able to develop and come up with is DepEd ALS TV. And this is in partnership with Solar Entertainment through Solar Learning. So far, we have several episodes have been produced, and the episodes are run twice a day, so that if a learner misses the episode in the morning because he is working or she is attending to her kids who are also doing remote learning, he or she can catch up in the evening or later time of the day. So we thank Solar Learning for this one, and we hope that in the coming years we will continue to expand and have more episodes produced. I have been asked what ALS 2.0 is. Now, why ALS 2.0? So ALS 2.0 is the result of close collaboration of DepEd with its stakeholders, wherein we reviewed, evaluated, and updated the various components of ALS, such as learning delivery, learning resources, assessment, and the stakeholder engagement. In 2019, with the finalization of the enhanced ALS K-12 basic education curriculum and the rollout of the ALS 2.0 strategic roadmap, DepEd continues to deliver on its priority to expand and strengthen ALS. All these documents, ALS K-12 curriculum, ALS strategic roadmap, are all available on the website. So if you want to check it, it's all there. DepEd website and DepEd ALS 2.0 microsite as well. So I've mentioned that it's improving and updating and improving components of ALS. It started, of course, with aligning of the non-formal education curriculum with that of formal. Of course, we have been criticized for doing this. Some have said that we formalized non-formal education, but I beg to differ, and we have been adamant in saying that since it's a parallel learning, ALS is a parallel learning system, so the competency should be parallel as well. And we don't want our learners to be left behind when you talk of them being able to proceed to higher education, employment, and higher skills training, and even entrepreneurship. So we have to adopt the 21st century skills, teach it to them as well, because they will not be forever. Let's teach them how to dream. That's one thing that we agreed on. That's why we aligned the curriculum with that of formal education, which is K-12. Of course, we trained our teachers, and this will be a continuous. There's a capability building program for all our ALS implementers, so that this is part of course, now Sulong Edukalidad, which recognizes the role of our teachers in the delivery of quality basic education. So it's also part of the rigorous professional development program that we are preparing for our teachers. In ALS, we have also embedded the priority programs of the Duterte administration. So we are, of course, we are in the drug rehab centers. We are offering ALS as well to our rebel returnees and rebel returnees. So ALS has been recognized as a tool to empower those who have been those who have lost their way, kaya nga least, last, and the lost. So this is it, and we have intensified our efforts as we work with the other government agencies as well. So the passage of the ALS law is further bolsters DepEd's continuous expansion and strengthening of the ALS program. The provisions were consulted, reviewed, and vetted by the department through my office and the Alternative Learning System Task Force. We have, of course, worked closely with the stakeholders in government and private sector to ensure that the unique circumstances of ALS learners and the welfare of our teachers and implementers are duly taken into consideration. The objectives of the law are to provide adequate, timely, quality attention and support to the basic education of out-of-school children in special cases and adults, including indigenous peoples, guarantee equal access for all learners, including those who reside in unreached areas, and so that they can avail of a systemic, flexible, and appropriate alternative basic education programs outside of the formal system. Promote lifelong learning opportunities anchored on the K-12 basic education curriculum and develop our learners so that they will become caring, self-reliant, independent, productive, and patriotic citizens. Also, part of the objectives tackles, of course, the welfare of our teachers, that we will hire, capacitate, and deploy more ALS teachers, community ALS implementers, and learning facilitators to deliver a range of ALS programs, and then a special inclusion and instruction for DepEd to design specialized programs for learners with disabilities as well. And of course, as we strengthen non-formal education, as we strengthen ALS, we also emphasize that we support the policy of DepEd that school-age children should be enrolled in formal education and be able to return to formal education system in the event that they drop out. So of course, let's do away with ALS being a shortcut to our learners getting their diplomas. So there we strengthen non-formal system, but we still support the DepEd policy of school-age children should be enrolled in formal education and should be helped in the event that they drop out. The law also establishes an ALS bureau. As you may know, one of the biggest shocks that we've had when we assumed office is that the former Bureau of Alternative Learning System was, due to the rationalization, it was gone when we came in. So the establishment or creation of a Bureau of Alternative Education as part of the law will ensure that there will be a permanent focal office in the DepEd Central who will oversee and who will manage and coordinate the implementation of the ALS program. Provision also on the assessment and certification for ALS learners. The law was specific in saying that DepEd should be able to conduct regular A&E tests so that our learners can proceed with their plans and they will be certified. And these are on the screen is the eligibility of ALS program and A&E test passers. So it's said in the law, it had to be stated in the law because there are some institutions that do not recognize the passers of A&E or those who were certified by DepEd even. Part of this section of the law also introduces micro-certification so that our learners, even if they don't take the high-stakes A&E test, will have proof of their learning. They will get a proof of their learning as they go through the different interventions. Currently, it is under a pilot study together with some of our partners, and we hope that in the coming years we will be able to roll this out so that our learners will not go out of the program empty-handed in the event that they don't pass accreditation and equivalency test. We are developing now supplemental learning programs so that our A&E test passers will be able to cope with the demands of higher education and of course, to facilitate their gainful employment and self-employment. The law provides that DepEd shall create teaching positions and allocate corresponding salary grades to for the implementation of the ALS program. And DepEd shall ensure equal opportunities and standard implementation on the promotion and compensation of ALS teachers. As we've mentioned, part of Sulong Edukalidad is ensuring that our teachers will continuously be upskilled, reskilled, retooled. So that goes even for ALS, so that our ALS implementers will be able to carry out and deliver the ALS program and enhance their skills on their role as academic, administrative, and community leaders. The law pushes for the same benefits and professional development package awarded to regular teachers in terms of scholarships, fellowships, training opportunities. There. One important provision is the establishment of community learning centers by DepEd, LGU, or both in every municipality and city nationwide. As you may know, with the curriculum being aligned to K-12, it is no longer providing a conducive learning environment is necessary, and learning environment with complete tools, with complete equipment will be necessary for our learners to be able to learn. Take, for example, digital citizenship, which is the newest learning strand of ALS. How can you learn digital citizenship under the trees without computers? So this provision of the law is very important, and we hope that we will get to see community learning centers rising here and there as we go about the future. It's very important. I would have to emphasize again, and I hope that the LGUs who have been doing this, who have been establishing community learning centers, will intensify their support in the coming years. The law also strengthens our partnership with various national government agencies. Of course, it's listed here how the law lists the agencies, how they can help ALS, and our points of convergence eventually. It also looks at a strengthened partnership with LGUs. As you may know, a lot of our support in the previous years, a lot of our achievements in the previous years have been possible because of the support of LGUs, from providing community learning centers, supplementing the learning resources needed by our learners, to providing snacks to them and bringing them to the testing center once the A&E is there, to promoting, to including ALS passers when you talk of local job expos that they have at the cities or municipalities, and even at the barangay level. The law also specifies or provides that the local school boards shall be authorized to set aside a portion of the proceeds of the SEF for the delivery of ALS programs within the LGU's respective areas of jurisdiction. So this is good news for our LGU. So your hands will no longer be tied to just supporting formal school. You can now support ALS as enabled by this law. And of course, we continue also to recognize our many partners, the private ALS service providers, and Section 14 of the law encourages partnership with the private sector. And part of the law is guidelines on our partnership, recognition of our partners, so that they can have standards of service delivery and a system of rewards and incentives as well. Tax incentives. For the private sector, any donation, contribution, or grants in support for the promotion of the ALS program shall be exempt from donors tax. So this is part of the ALS law, and I know it's good news because we have a lot of private sector partners as well. So overall, the administration of Secretary Ling has less than a year to get everything done. So the institutionalization of the ALS program shall help ensure that ALS will not, DepEd's Second Chance Basic Education Program does not have to be second class. We hope that with the law, as it strengthens, as it capacitates, as it gathers or shepherds the stakeholders and the partner and other partners, we will be able to really reach out to the least, the last, and the lost, and provide them with better access to improve learning opportunities, resources, and give them a better fighting chance of being seen, considered, empowered, and integrated to become competent and productive lifelong learners and contributors to the community and nation building. Again, thank you very much for this time that you've given me, and please check for updates about ALS. We are in the website. We have the official Facebook page, DepEd ALS 2.0, and you can get in touch with my office through this email. So with that, magandang umaga at maraming salamat. I will be ready to answer questions in a while. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ASEC GH, for being a part of our event and for such a thorough presentation about the alternative learning system. Through your talk, we were able to witness and visualize very vividly how proactive, how collaborative, and how innovative and strategic your initiatives are to ensure that the lifelong learning and literacy needs of the out-of-school youth and adults and some children in special cases are addressed with the professionalism, passion, dedication that your team has. Congratulations as GH and congratulations to the whole ALS family. After listening to the presentations about the formal and non-formal basic education, we will now proceed to the technical education skills development and see what innovations they have for their online and other related programs. Our next speaker is a licensed chemical engineer and an experienced TechVoc trainer, administrator, and director who has anchored his professional career in technical education and skills development. As the executive director of the National Institute for Technical Education and Skills Development of TESDA, he is tasked to help reposition technical vocational education and training, or TVET, in the context of the fourth industrial revolution and promote its importance as a critical sector for education, social, and economic development. He is challenged to help the agency make TVET agile, flexible, and responsive amidst the challenge of the digital and the rapidly evolving world of work. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for the Executive Director of the National Institute for Technical Education and Skills Development of TESDA, Director David B. Bungalion.
Thank you very much, Sir Enric. So to our Secretary, Leonor Magtulis Biones, Ma'am, and the whole family of DepEd, distinguished guests, officials, and participants from the public and private sectors, speakers, and resource persons, ladies and gentlemen, a happy Literacy Week to all. Well, Secretary Isidro S. La Peña and the whole of TESDA would like first to congratulate DepEd for hosting this virtual National Literacy Conference in celebration of the annual Literacy Week. We thank also the same for making TESDA a part of this conference or celebration. So let me share my slide. Okay, so my topic now is based on the invitation we received. So I'll be discussing the Philippine-Tibet initiatives amidst challenges of COVID-19 pandemic and the fourth industrial revolution. So it will be limited to the National TSD Plan of 2018-2020, where we anchor all our programs and services, the Philippine-Tibet 4.0 framework, as a framework that would implement our NTSDP plan, and the Tibet Continuity Initiatives amidst COVID-19 and supporting innovations in the Philippine-Tibet. So the Philippine-Tibet sector is guided by the National Technical Education Skills Development Plan for 2018 to 2022, with reference to the Philippine National Development Plan of 2017-2022. The long-term goal of Ambition Natin 2040, as well as the UN Sustainable Development Goals. The NTSDP envisions a private quality Tibet for decent work and sustainable inclusive growth, with a two-pronged direction of Tibet for global competitiveness and workforce readiness, and Tibet for social equity and poverty reduction. So these two thrust directions ensure that we meet the present and the future skills needs of the local economy, I mean global and the local, and that access to Tibet, quality Tibet, is provided particularly for the disadvantaged and the marginalized groups. And in support to this economic development, the plan has also identified priority sectors in which Tibet investments would focus on, and these include agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, construction, IT, BPM, transportation, communication, storage, and health and wellness. So the challenge of the fourth IR caused TESDA to develop the Philippine Tibet 4.0, which provides the different strategies in upgrading Tibet and adopting innovations that will equip the learners with 21st century skills and higher order thinking skills and become 4.0 ready workers who can thrive in the new normal driven and advancing technology. These strategies are not new concepts actually. In fact, these are already being implemented by TESDA. It is just a matter of recalibrating these programs to make sure they address the unique challenges of the fourth industrial revolution. Let me just emphasize the strategies currently being undertaken, such as the development of competency standards and curriculum on new and emerging skills, the establishment of a 4.0 ready TESDA technology institutions, the strengthening engagement of industries in enterprise-based trainings, upskilling trainers with 4.0 ready and effective pedagogies, and also developing the culture of technology research. So these are among the strategies that we are now currently working towards the development of a 4.0 ready worker. So while we are preparing for all of this to address global competitiveness and Tibet enterprise-based training programs, community-based training programs, including the competency assessment and certification for our Tibet graduates and workers, and including all other programs. However, in effect, the pandemic, we do not consider actually the pandemic as actually a problem that has affected our programs, but instead it also, in effect, accelerated innovations, okay, in the way we do things, especially in the delivery of Tibet. So while we were working forward to the challenges of the fourth industrial revolution and working along the Philippine Tibet 4.0 ready, this COVID-19 has caught us unprepared, causing disruptions to all these programs. So as a quick response, of course, we have strengthened the TESDA online program to resolve the surge of users during the early COVID-19, enhanced community quarantines, immediately developed and rolled out the policy on flexible learning delivery system in Tibet, capacitated the Tibet trainers with e-learning delivery competencies, and enhanced the Tibet scholarship benefits vis-a-vis flexible learning delivery system. So on the TESDA online program, this is actually a web-enabled learning management system that provides open educational resource for Tibet through massive open online courses. So we call this as the MOOC. It aims to make technical education accessible to more Filipino citizens through the use of ICT, and this can be accessed for free anytime and anywhere. Of course, through computers and mobile devices using the internet. Currently, the TESDA online program is offering 103 courses along the 13 sectors, and we are continuously developing programs along other sectors and within these 13 sectors. The accomplishment of this TESDA online program, actually, this started since 2012, and until to date, it has served 3,158,032 users. Okay. But what is amazing here is during the pandemic, during the early quarantine period from March 16 to July 31, the TOP has registered 1,721,425 users. And from these users, there are about 143,435 OFWs that were observed, that were registered. And for this year, from January to July this year, this TESDA online program has served 1,724 OFWs. So this is actually accessed in the whole country, and there are even users that are accessing this outside the country. So these are the 13 sectors that were provided programs within the TESDA online program learning management system. And these are the programs actually. You could all see this one in the website of TESDA. And this is now what we are actually, this is now developed, and we will be launching this one, which is what we call the TESDA online program multi-regional with multi-regional capacity. Okay. At first, actually, the TESDA online program is managed through the use of a physical server co-located at the DOST. This has been it has been smoothly managed and running since 2012 until February of 2020, until the until it was launched with surge of users in March 2020. We have even experienced 20,000 concurrent users, meaning users at one time, and this resulted to the slowdown and actually even the shutdown of the system. So we rushed to DICT, and DICT helped us through a credit system with Amazon Web Solution, and we were able to bring back the TESDA online program via cloud already. And to date, we can say now that our LMS cloud-based is a TESDA-owned account. So the characteristic or the structure, the feature of the TESDA online program is a MOOC, but now it will no longer just be a MOOC, but because it will become a credit program with this expansion with multi-regional capacity. So at the regions will be considered cohorts within the TESDA online program with the TESDA technology solutions as customized categories, and all the TESDA training institutions trainers will be provided with their accounts. And this will result, of course, to the capacity to the regional office capacitated to be able to get data analytic or manage their data and monitor also their TESDA technology institutions within their respective regions, and they will be able to provide the regional support to these institutions, while our institutions will be enjoying readily available TESDA online program for TTIs, and this will become their credit programs. It will enhance or strengthen their blended and online learning delivery with the presence of readily available TESDA online program. And also, of course, to our trainers, they will be able to contextualize their learning delivery. They'll be having the control of their learning environments and enhance their learning materials with nationally developed e-learning materials for the delivery of competency-based training. So the other initiative was the flexible learning delivery in Tibet. So this is actually the initiative that we have done in result to the problem, to the concern of how Tibet will continue in the midst of the quarantines. So the flexible learning, we consider flexible learning as the provision of a range of learning modes or methods, giving learners greater choice of when, where, and how they learn. Okay, and we took this definition from the National Center for Vocational Education and Research Center of Australia. Okay. So this is now the conceptual framework for the flexible learning delivery in Tibet. Wow. What happened? Ano to? Ano nangyari dito? Yeah, just a moment. There's, I think, a technical problem with my presentation. Yeah. Is my presentation seen? Hello, nakikita ba yung presentation, sir?
Hindi po, Dr.
Hindi.
David.
Yeah.
Check po.
Okay. Is it now seen?
Yes, sir. We can
Okay,
see your screen now.
Okay, thank you very much. So based on the definition, we came up with a conceptual framework giving considerations to the capacity of the technical vocational institutions, the capacity of the trainers in delivering learning sessions through flexible learning delivery modes, and the learner's capacity and access to learning resources. These are the factors that we have considered in coming up with this flexible learning delivery system. It is also very important to consider the connectivity and accessibility to internet of the different areas where the institutions are. And another factor that was considered was, of course, the quality assurance. The quality assurance in delivering TBEP using the different modes of flexible learning. So the delivery modes under the flexible learning in Tibet are the following. Well, we have the face-to-face learning. This is not actually part of the flexible learning delivery because this is the conventional mode. So one is the online learning through the use of web-based learning management system and or web-based applications. This is recommended for courses that are not equipped that are not equipment intensive, actually, and or literally these are knowledge-based courses. While the blended learning is a combination of the online learning and face-to-face learning with support from offline e-learning. The face-to-face component is required for the skills-based learning that requires the use of equipment. This is not. This is the learning mode which TESDA is actually popularizing within Tibet because, of course, we cannot replace the use of the equipment, hands-on use of the equipment with virtual realities and or illustrations. The distance learning is a learning mode that has been popularized also decades ago. Actually, this is very popular in knowledge-based courses. But in Tibet, the competency-based learning materials is the most important thing in delivering distance learning. This is what we call the heart of distance learning. So it is the competency-based learning materials. This comes with a strong communication support system between and among the trainers and facilitators. The distance learning is combined with face-to-face learning for courses that are skills and equipment based. And in classroom delivery, the facilitator, learning facilitator, or the trainer may use a combination of these different learning modes. So in support, TESDA issued TESDA Circular number 62 series of 2020 to guide our Tibet institutions in using the flexible learning delivery system or modes. So this is how this FLD was implemented with our TESDA vocational institutions. So we have our institutions complying or preparing the different requirements, such as they have to update their competency-based curriculum, reflecting therein the different learning modes based on their capacity and based on their learners' capacity. So they have to prepare a training plan reflecting the different training metrics, training activity matrix, and the resources that they have. Then they have also to submit that a list of trainers that are capable in delivering the online component or the distance component of the course, and of course from their compliance to the health protocol requirements of the IATF or the LGUs. And with these requirements, TESDA issues to the institution the certificate of recognition that they are now authorized to go on with their the delivery of their training program using the flexible learning delivery modes. And of course, these are with their readiness, particularly the capability of their trainer and their capacity as an institution. They have now to submit after delivering the program to the TESDA provincial office all these requirements, such as the learner's achievement report, the progress chart, terminal reports, and other evidences of learning in order for the school to submit to TESDA, to the provincial office of TESDA, and then for TESDA to issue, of course, in as far as the scholarship is concerned, the payment of the scholarship programs. In the classroom, this is what is expected. The trainers were trained to use different modes, not only just choose one mode or a combination of two modes, depending, again, on the capacity of the institution and depending on the condition of the learners. So it can be a combination of distance with face-to-face. It can be a combination of distance blended with face-to-face and distance with online learning. And this can be applied to not only one group of learner, but of course, a group of learner with different modes applied in the course of their learning. The other initiative was the development of art trainers in order that they'll be able to run the blended learning and the online learning. And this we call the facilitate e-learning course. So they were taught during that the early part of our quarantine periods how to introduce e-learning, how to establish e-learning environment, how to facilitate e-learning, how to monitor learning progress, and evaluate e-learnings. And then they were capacitated to prepare web scripts, presentations, use videos, prepare learning materials, interactive materials, quizzes, development site, and then also how to manage development sites. At that time, we were able to rushly train about 9,000 trainers. The other intervention was enhancing the package of Tibet scholarship programs. So we have actually the different scholarship programs, the Training for Work scholarship programs that is offered by our technical vocational institutions in line with, of course, the key employment generators of a region or a province. And we have the special training programs for employment, and we call this the STEP. These are actually short-term programs that are considered community-based, but being implemented also by our technical vocational institutions. We have also the PESFA, and then the UACTIA, implemented by our technical vocational institutions, particularly the private institutions for PESFA, and the Tulong Trabaho Act. Okay. So for the TWSP, actually the coverage of the incentives for our learners are the training cost and the competency assessment fee. But with the pandemic, we enhanced the package to include internet or communication allowance and accident insurance. For this step, we included training support fund or allowance, a daily allowance, internet or communication allowance, and accident insurance. And so with the PESFA, we included the internet allowance or communication allowance as debt insurance in order for all these for the learners to do online learning. And so with the UAPTIA. The other endeavor or initiative of the agency is the introduction of the innovation in the Philippine-Tibet system. Okay? So this is actually this is in pursuit of the global competitiveness and workforce readiness and in response to the Philippine Innovation Act of 2019 or Republic Act 11293. TESDA commends innovation in the Philippines-Tibet system, which is a direction that will reform delivery of Tibet and remain relevant with the continuing economic and technological development. The framework integrates innovations on technical education and training, technology, research and experimentation, and entrepreneurial education with the provision of an authentic learning environment that will ensure a holistic development of a learner and become work-ready in a technology-driven economy. We call this actually the 3 E's in the Tibet innovation system. This development requires an active and responsive ecosystem, partnership with industry, government, and academia. To ensure quality assurance, the institution must maintain an international monitoring standard, and that is what we refer as the IHUB system. So to operationalize such innovation in the Tibet system, the TTIs are required to enhance the curriculum with the 21st century skills, the core technical skills, the STEM skills, and upgrade their training equipment with state-of-the-art and learning systems to introduce Sport IR-related skills, to establish innovation center that will provide the platforms for technology research activities, makers space or prototyping laboratories, and business incubation and startup. The industry or the micro, small, and medium enterprises or the MSMEs as part of the institution's ecosystem play a vital role in the innovation in Tibet. Collaboration and convergence with the government agencies such as the DOSP, DTI, and other agencies are necessary to support the implementation process. A Tibet graduate from this innovation are expected to be prepared with 21st century skills and higher technical competencies and be work ready in the 4.0 labor market. So these are actually the ongoing projects and programs related to the innovation in Tibet. We have just actually completed the 3 regional innovation centers in 3 regions worth 120 million at 40 million per center. There is the ongoing procurement of the learning system and equipment for the 3 regional technical innovation centers worth 120 million. So another 40 million each for these newly established centers, which are part of the TESDA technology institutions. We have the ongoing procurement for establishment of the Learning Center 4.0 at the National Capital Region within the TESDA compound at 500 million. So this includes the e-learning softwares. Okay, this includes identification of the priority sector programs, and then they will be provided with innovation centers and e-learning softwares, the hardwares, the learning systems, training equipments, and other Port IR related learning infrastructures. We have also the ongoing procurement for the construction of additional 5 regional Tibet innovation centers worth 200 million at 40 million each, and the ongoing negotiation with the ADB for a loan for the project supporting innovation in the Philippine Tibet, which will upgrade the Philippine Tibet ecosystem with upgraded TESDA Technology Institution facilities, TTI innovation centers that would now strengthen or support technology research, makers space, and business startups. The curriculum, this is with the amount of 5 billion pesos, which will be a 5-year project from 2021 to 2026. And in our NEP, it was in our 2022 NEP, it was also included that the construction of additional 5 regional innovation centers will be pursued this 2022. So far, these are actually the ongoing projects and the initiatives of the agency as far as how we have continued Tibet during the time of the quarantines and how we are pursuing innovations in Tibet. So I stop from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. David Bugalyon. Due to unforeseen circumstances, one of our guest speakers will not be able to attend the conference. Attorney Joseph Noel Estrada is sending his regrets for not being able to make it today. Thank you for imparting to us your knowledge about blended and flexible learning. Director Ariola, Asik Ambat, and Director Bugalyon. We will now have the open forum. Again, we would like to remind everyone that for those who are in the Microsoft Teams, kindly click the raise button if you wish to speak. Please wait for the moderators to acknowledge you before speaking. Once called, we encourage you to turn on your video as well and state your name and organization represented. The other participants may also utilize the chat box for comments and questions. For the participants who tuned in via DepEd's Facebook page, please do not hesitate to engage with us or the comment box. Our moderators will be monitoring it too. So, may we call again Mr. Enrico R. Mendoza to facilitate the open forum for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mamel. In the interest of time, we will entertain only a few questions from our participants, and we would appreciate it po if your questions would be very brief and precise. Again, let us all recognize our presenters, Director Ariola, ASIC GH, and Director David to answer the questions. You may now raise your hand, please. And while we are waiting for your hands to be raised, maybe you haven't decided the question that you're going to ask. We have a question here at the chat box. The question is for ASIC GH Ambat. Hi, ASIC. From Miss Flora Arellano. The question to ASIC GH is, how many else teachers are in the DepEd current teaching workforce? Do they also avail the same provisions with the formal school teachers in terms of remunerations, allowances, incentives, etc.? ASIC GH, please.
Hello, Ma'am Flora. Hello to our participants in this conference. So to answer your question, there are currently about, I don't know the updated, but it's around 7,000, the exact number. It's around 7,000 as mobile teacher. These are the DepEd hired teachers. So being DepEd hired, they are also entitled to all the equivalent salaries of those in the formal school. They receive the same benefits. And as you may know, as part of the law, they are also entitled to transportation allowance and teaching aid allowance. However, we are still in negotiation with the Department of Budget and Management on how that additional compensation should be treated so that it's not it doesn't fall under double compensation. I hope you know the story about that. In the recent year that we are in the pandemic, of course, our mobile teachers were also entitled to laptops. Laptops were given to them. They are also part of those who received the SIM cards so that they will be able to teach online as well. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, ASIC GH. There's another earlier question posted in our chat box, and this is also from Inet Philippines. Asik Ambat, I think, can answer this question. How do we popularize adult learning and education since many of our adults lack education po?
How do we popularize? Ito, pagtutulungan po natin itong parteng ito. We would be needing, of course, the expertise of our partners on how to go about it. Adult education is very critical now, especially as we face ito pong fourth industrial revolution. We want to upskill din ang ating mga adults, whether they finish basic ed or not. They can take yung mga continuing education either through TESDA, and of course if they did not finish basic ed, ito po yung alternative learning system ng DepEd. Ang kakailanganin po talaga natin dito ay partnership para maipating sa mga adults na there is such a program of government and that we want them to be capacitated, to be upskilled dahil po kasama po sila sa ating mga plano at naiintindihan po natin na in the Build Back Better and in the recovery post-COVID, maraming skills ang kakailanganin, digital skills, collaboration, and critical thinking skills, yung mga 21st century skills po na pinag-uusapan natin. So, in short, DepEd has its role there, but definitely we have to be partnering with all of you. Of course, PIA is here, the LGUs are here, so magtutulungan po tayo para yung mga adults po natin that need to be upskilled or that need to finish basic ed will benefit from the government programs.
Thank you, Asik GH. One more question from our viewer, one of our viewers there at the Facebook Live from Mr. Jason Antonio of PCC. And the question is addressed to Dr. David Bungalion. The question is, how do we align and implement the TVET program amidst the challenges of the pandemic? How do we reimagine skill education development in the new normal, as well as learning and innovation vis-a-vis Industrial Revolution 4.0? Director David?
Yeah, thank you very much, Enrique. I think the question is complex, but I'll try to respond based on my limited knowledge. Well, actually, yes. When we talk of the 4.0 industrial revolution skills, actually this will require the active participation of our industries. As we all know that when it comes to Tibet, we always refer to the industry who are actually the users of our Tibet graduates. So what we are doing now actually is we are now benchmarking from international practices. We are now actually enhancing our facilities, as I've explained, as I've presented a while ago, with the project on innovation in the Tibet within the Tibet system, and then also enhancing the curriculum. Well, the most important thing when we talk of a 4.0 ready worker, especially as a Tibet graduate, is a graduate that is skilled with the 21st century skills. That he must be creative, he must have systems thinking, he must be analytic, he must be innovative in the work process as he will enter the work environment. So what is very important here is to upgrade the curriculum that will now reflect the requirements of industry as far as the development of a 4.0 ready worker is concerned.
Thank you very much, Director David, for responding to that question. There are no more questions in the chat box, except this is not a question, but I think this is something that we have to know, because she said, this is from Ma'am Lucena Calamba, what we are using now in attending this National Literacy Conference is the same given to us by DepEd. I am an ALS teacher. So congratulations po. Sana all. So ladies and gentlemen, this ends our open forum. For those whose questions were not entertained, we still request you to please email us your questions and concerns, and we will try to address them as soon as possible. Thank you once again to all our speakers, resource persons who are here, And thank you very much to those who are viewing and sa Facebook natin at sa MS Teams. Back to you, Mamel.
Thank you, Sir Eric, and thank you everyone for actively participating and making the first day of this literacy conference a fruitful session. To recognize our esteemed guest speakers and facilitator, let us move on to the awarding of Certificate of Recognition. This certificate is awarded to Director Laila P. Ariola for her meritorious role as resource speaker in the 2021 National Literacy Conference with the theme Literacy Learning Innovations in the New Normal Towards Sustainable Development, held via MS Teams on September 6 to 7, 2021, given this 6th day of September 2021. Next, this certificate of recognition is also awarded to ASEC GHS Ambat for her meritorious role as resource speaker. Also, to Director David D. Bugalyon for his meritorious role as resource speaker. We also like to award the Certificate of Recognition to Mr. Enrico R. Mendoza for his meritorious role as facilitator during the plenary session 2. Signed by Diosdado M. San Antonio, Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction, Chairperson of Literacy Coordinating Council. Congratulations, Director Ariola, ASEC Ambat, Director Bugalyon, and Mr. Mendoza. A few reminders before we end the day of the conference. We will be sending the meeting link for tomorrow's conference to the registered email you provided us. To be able to receive a certificate of participation, you have to accomplish the evaluation form to be posted tomorrow. May request everyone to turn on your camera for a photo opportunity. Everyone, turn your cameras on, please. Andyan pa po ba tayo? All right, so who will take the photo? Secretariat, please. All right, please turn on your camera, everyone. Okay, ready now? All right. 1, 2, 3. Smile. Okay, how many panels do we have? Okay na tayo? Okay na. All right. Thank you very much for staying with us for the past 4 hours. This has been your host, Melinda Quinones, and we hope to see you again tomorrow. Have a great day.